Look at that.
Rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the manifest?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
First thing on the agenda is cafe services, to go over the survey results and any further questions we have with them.
Do you want to do the public hearing?
Oh, yes, I'm
first?
sorry, you're right, we do have a public hearing. I apologize. We'll do the technology one first. That's just a continuation of from the last meeting. And we were looking for the dollar amount and the number of iPads and the amount left in the capital reserve.
I can tell you that the total, the 4 iPads, was $1,992, and then the security systems were $992, and shipping for the security systems were $21.96. Now the security systems are mounted metal holders, if you will, just to kind of keep it locked in. Locks the home screen, so it only stays on that one screen, so that they aren't going to be surfing the web on that. It's mounted over here on the bookshelf, and so kids can walk right up and plug in what they're looking for.
That's for check-in and check-out?
That is for searching.
Searching?
That is not the replacement computer for the searchable database and for the self-checkout. These are just to replace those 5 computers.
So it's 5 iPads?
No, they're replacing 5 computers with 4 iPads.
And how much was the 4? I'm sorry, Jane.
$19.92.
The 4 iPads came to a total of $1,992.
$992 for shipping.
I got that. I just didn't make the road.
Yeah, $19.92.
As well as the enclosures have a security cable lock that locks it down, so you can't you could unscrew it, but you would still be locked in with a cable, so somebody couldn't just walk away with the whole device.
Yeah.
And the shipping on that was $21.96 for a total of $3,005.96.
So the balance in the...
The balance in the Technology Trust Fund is $2,298.70 as of December 31st.
And the balance would come out of the technology line.
So you show $717.26.
So if we took $22.97 out of the technology fund, that would leave $1.70 in there to keep it open. It would be $708.96 out of the technology budget or library budget?
I think technology. Certainly have more money in there, and right now because we didn't go with the interactive whiteboards, we'd have more money out of there, and I could pay for the iPad piece of that out of the technology line. I think that would be appropriate.
Well, we also, didn't you say last week that we didn't buy the e-readers and we had money left over? There was money left over.
About $900 left over in there from the e-readers. I could take it out of there also. Really makes no difference to me where we take what line we take it out of as a bottom line budget.
Well, it makes a difference when we're talking about budgeting next year to know what we spent it on and if we spent that money, if we need it again. And since it's for the library, I think we'd think it would come out of the library budget.
Again, I was addressing the technology end of it, and feeling we had more money there that I was able to be able to use for that. But again, if we wanted to take it out of the library, I wouldn't be in opposition to that either.
Well, where's that laminator coming out of, though? Isn't that coming out of the library?
But the laminator's been budgeted for next year.
So we're not doing anything
No.
on this budget?
I don't want to continue repairing something that just,
I wasn't sure if we had
Yeah,
enough to purchase it out of this year's budget.
no, it's pretty,
No.
it's a big ticket item.
Is there any comments from the public regarding the technology fund? Any board members?
Well, have we decided which line we're gonna take it out of? Yeah, we're gonna take it out of the
The 7 or
library?
8.
It would be my preference to take it out of the library, but, I mean, that's up to the whole board what they want to do.
I think I'd prefer it come out of the technology.
How much,
I think the library is pretty limited already.
how much, do we know how much money is in the library?
Andrew?
The only reason I was saying the library was because we had budgeted money for e-readers and 2 computers in that line. And at last week's meeting, I made note that those hadn't been purchased yet, and apparently we're not going to purchase them.
They were purchased and we returned, when we moved that around, and I paid for that out of the student activities, which we'll talk about in a little while, but to go for those, the kneecap rewards, and then reimburse the tech line, the library line from the student activities to pay for those e-readers,
Okay.
which will be addressed on Friday.
Which will be addressed
We
on
had the,
Friday.
we had the
What's Friday?
the kneecap, we had the kneecap rewards for those students who participated in kneecaps, grades 3 through 8. For those students who made proficiency or made an increase of 10% or more, their names put
Okay.
that raffle, and we'll do that on Friday before vacation.
Okay.
That's not books. I'm going ahead in my principal's report, but
We have $1,400 on the library equipment line that we still have to, that we can use.
That we can use?
Yeah.
Okay.
either way, I mean, we still are looking at a computer for that self-checkout. That's why I was drawing that distinction between the self-search and the self-checkout. We do need to replace a computer for the self-checkout.
Do we have a price on that?
Yeah, I do. I'm not quite off the top of my head. I forget what it is.
I thought we had budgeted for that, though.
Is that part of the 2 computers that were budgeted for last year? Okay.
Should be.
Well, if that's not that 1,400 you're talking about, Andrew?
The 1,400 is what we have left at this point that is unencumbered for library equipment.
Is there a distinction between library equipment and library tech?
There's no separate library tech line, so it would be under equipment.
Do we have anything else for the library that we know is coming up that we're gonna need it?
Well, not on the equipment, no. But if we're looking to replace that computer for library, either way, when I look at it right now, either we're gonna pay for the iPad remainder out of the library tech fund, or out of the tech, or the library fund, or the tech fund. And if I have to buy a new computer for the self-checkout, that's gonna come out of the library fund or the tech fund. So
Either way.
in my opinion,
Either way.
it's 6 of one, half dozen of another at this point.
I think it should be.
Computer or iPad? for
You know,
the
the
checkout?
computer for the self-checkout, the iPads for the
You
self-search.
need a computer for the self-checkout?
Right, that's the one that runs off the barcode reader.
And that'll come in handy with inventories and stuff too.
Well, we already have the barcode reader, so which will be useful. We can inventory any of our barcodes off that.
That's good.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to come out of the technology fund line.
Okay, so the 2297 to come out of the capital reserve,
Capital reserve,
and the 70896 to come out of technology.
yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in... Go ahead.
I think I'd prefer to see that come out of the library line myself, but,
Well, if we're gonna have to take the computer out, then
Mhm.
we're gonna overspend the line. So if there's
Well-
money in the tech, makes sense.
Right, but why don't we take this with the 4 iPads and more, you know, and then you have one computer for checkout? To me, it would make more sense to take the 4 iPads out of the library, and if we have to, take the one computer out of the tech line. That,
Yeah, it's
to me, I don't know, just,
either way. It's all coming out of somewhere.
well, I understand that, but, well, just like you said, for budgeting next year,
Yeah,
it could help out.
just one of those things you're gonna have to remember.
Mhm.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Close that public hearing, and we need to open a public hearing on the SAU withdrawal warrant article. This warrant article was put on this year after Milton expressed interest and told us that they were going to put a warrant article on to form a study committee to withdraw from the SAU. We felt rather than to wait to see what they did, that we should be proactive as well and put the article on ourselves, on our district, to see how our townspeople felt about it. This way, if we pass this, we can do the study. The study does not mean that you're going to withdraw from SAU 64. The study just means that you're going to look at your options. You can look at joining another SAU, reorganizing your own SAU, or reorganizing the current SAU, or forming a new SAU for Wakefield only. It's only a study committee. It would have to be brought back to the voters at next year's town meeting with a recommendation, and another vote would have to take place at that time. It's probably a 2 to 3 year process. We'd have to look at both financially and educationally what the benefits would be of forming your own SAU. It's not always just about the money. Sometimes there could be an educational benefit to it as well. So again, it's just to study it and look at our options. Is there any public comment or any questions from the public? Bonnie?
Bonnie Sear. Is there any, who does the study? Is it a district study, or do we hire someone for the study?
No, it's actually designated in the RSA. I believe there's 4 members of the public, 2 school board members, and 1 member from your local budget committee, I think it is. I'm not sure if there's
The only
any
thing you
other.
missed is a superintendent as a non-voting member.
Superintendent is a non-voting member.
I can walk through the steps of the process.
Sure, if you'd like to, Jay.
And there are 4 major steps to the process. The first step is the step that you're on, which is a vote to create the committee. The committee's made up of the people that Judy mentioned, but they are selected by different means. The 2 school board members are appointed by the board. The representative of the budget committee is selected by the budget committee. The 4 public members at large are appointed by the district moderator. And then you have the superintendent. So that's the first step, is to create a committee. What the committee does is it typically spends a year, it doesn't have to be a year, but typically they spend a year studying the options and bringing back to the voters a recommendation to proceed with writing a plan or not to proceed with writing a plan. Typically that happens at the following March at the next election. If the recommendation is to write a plan, and if the voters vote yes to write a plan, then you have a committee that writes the plan. They have a year to write the plan. That plan then comes back to the voters again the following March, and if that is approved by the voters, then 15 months later, on July 1st, is when the plan actually takes effect.
So it's a 3-year process.
Yeah, you can cut a year out of it, and the way to do that is to have the first committee that you're creating now come up with a recommendation much sooner. If in September they have a recommendation, you could have a special school district meeting, a special election, and could vote to go ahead and write the plan, and then you'd have 6 months to get a plan written. So you can cut a year off, but it's pretty tough.
It's kind of rushing it.
Yeah.
Didn't we have to wait till the people, the election, after the election, see what the people say on it?
Yes, but I noticed in the RSA that there was a requirement to do a public hearing prior to.
the-
And it was unclear as to whether or not we had to do it or not, the way it was worded, so I just decided to err on the side of caution and have the I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a public hearing, so we're here.
Thank you for your explanation.
Any other questions or comments by the board? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing. Now we'll go to cafe services. Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, we're back. Unfortunately, I just saw the parent and faculty surveys about half an hour ago.
Why is that?
They weren't forwarded. I guess Ruth got them recently. I did get a chance to go through them briefly.
Okay, I asked 2 weeks ago to make sure that those were given to cafe services, so they had time to review them for
And
tonight,
I
so.
just gave cafe services on Monday. That'll be my error,
On Monday?
on Monday.
Okay.
So
I apologize for that.
You know, I apologize because I'm not really prepared to respond to it. After looking through them really quickly, though, I mean it's somewhat of a typical survey result where you really kind of split down the middle with 50% of the people wanting one thing, 50% of the people wanting another thing, and try and find that middle ground. So we will take that information to task and try to summarize that for you. We can do that in a written communication to the board through the superintendent's office, if that would work for you all. There were some things in there. We also did get a chance, though, to review the 2 letters that were in question last time we were here. And there were some valid concerns there because, we were aware of the same concerns that they were expressing. That's why we got involved with Shelley LeCure coming up here doing more training, because there was some inconsistencies that we were aware of. In the cooking processes, we're bringing in new products that our new staff wasn't familiar with, so it was a little up and down there for a while. And there's kind of growing pains in this process. We recognize that. It seems around the same time those letters were written, or maybe even a little bit before then. I can't remember the timing, Chris. Maybe you could help with that, but since then, I feel like consistency's been, much more on line with what we anticipate this program to run like. Going forward with the formation of the wellness committees and the student committees that everybody's participating in, we're starting to get a lot more feedback through that avenue, and changes are being made. We talked about deli sandwiches last time I was here. I believe the next day you were having deli sandwiches.
Well, I don't know. We didn't get any. Only the students did, so I can't vouch for that.
But they're on the line. They're on the line every day.
I know.
One of the things, though, and I was a little remiss because driving home that night, it struck me, was one of the reasons the deli sandwiches went away is because the regulations changed, and in the K-8 school, we were exceeding the grain limitation. So, we could not serve them because what they do when they look at this nutrient analysis, they're looking at if they take that sandwich every day, and just by doing so, they're going to exceed what the limitation was for grains.
Yeah.
So even if it was offered, not every student took it. They're not going on weighted averages, which is what the old system was. So they'd say 20% of kids take this, 30, 40, so on. They're just saying, they're assuming, looking at every menu item, if every kid took this every day, would it be within the guideline? And the answer was no. Once they relaxed that, it was our error not to make sure, because a lot of those deli sandwiches came back, because honestly, they're a really popular option. So they're back. They're running around, 15, 20.
Well, that's the...
That's the 7th and 8th
Yeah.
deli, yeah. Oh, no, actually, with the wraps and the subs, it's going over 30. It was over 30 today.
So over 30. And from the comments that Ruth and Chris have been both getting from the committee meetings you're having, they're working on future menu development. It takes time to really get this thing the way it is. I think that what I'd like to see happen is, we'll take a look at the survey information we got from the parents and the faculty, give you some communication on that. But I think we should anticipate doing a survey probably towards the end of March, maybe the beginning of April, and taking a look and seeing what the results are from that after these changes have been fully implemented, and we have some time to measure the cause and effect. That's about all I have on surveys. One of the other issues that was brought up was negative balances, I believe, that you all were curious about those.
Yeah.
Well, we have some information for you.
Okay. I just have, I guess after I left the meeting, I guess I'm a little frustrated with the fact that a lot of things that we were told were going to happen didn't happen until we started complaining and asking, why aren't these things going on? There should have been a wellness committee, not a wellness, a food advisory committee in place in September. We had to continuously ask and ask, when is the food service committee going to start? It was supposed to start in December, didn't start in December. I believe the first meeting wasn't until January. So that's an issue.
Okay, I agree.
We were told about this healthy newsletter that was supposed to go out. That should have started in September. It hasn't gone out yet. The first one isn't scheduled to go out till March.
No, you received one in February.
You told us it would be going out in March.
You brought it to the last meeting.
You brought it to the last
For the
meeting.
first time that we've seen it.
I brought it to this meeting?
Well, it
And I
doesn't,
brought it to the
irregardless,
wellness
it doesn't
meeting
matter
before
if
that.
it was February or March. It should have happened in,
Right.
it should have happened in September.
Right.
The surveys, if the food advisory committee had been in effect in September, the first survey would have gone out a lot sooner than January, and we could have dealt with some of these issues a lot sooner. I do have some questions on your balance statements as well, but I'll wait till we get to that. But to continue on the surveys, a couple things that bothered me that I saw in them was parents talking about expired food. Raisins and milk past the date.
The raisins, that's actually a packed-on date, not an expiration date.
Right.
Those came from the USDA, and we've gotten those comments everywhere. And if you actually look, it's stamped on there. It's not, the date is in ink, the expiration date wording is in like an imprint on it, so it's harder to read, but it isn't packed on date, sorry.
And the milk? Milk being served, that was 3 days past the date?
Obviously, we're not, serving.
Well, it was.
spoiled
The
food.
child brought the
And maybe
container
if that
home.
happened, I mean, is it possible that it happened? Yes. The only person that, would really know is Ruth. I'm not here every day. It's certainly not a practice. Could a mistake have happened and somebody got a milk that was outdated? Possibly, yes. I mean, was that a common occurrence, or was that an isolated incident? Or?
It was something I noticed in the
Okay.
in the surveys. The other thing I noticed in the survey, which is why I asked for overdue accounts, there was a complaint from a parent that her child was allowed to charge up to $40 before the parent was made aware of it. The parent had a $40 bill. And then when she came in to discuss it, she actually ended up being qualified for free and reduced, but she still had to pay the $40 bill. That,
I mean, we're following a policy that's in place by the school. We don't make the charging policy.
well, actually, Chris participated
Okay.
in making the charge
Right, but I mean,
policy.
it's still,
this-
we're not in a position to make policy for you.
Right, but Chris participated in that
And
policy.
that's fine, and that
and
policy's being followed. Yes, no?
It's 3 meals.
Three meals.
3 meals are not $40. 3 meals. It's the maximum, and then they get the sandwich.
Right, but they
Steak.
still eat and they still
They still have to
charge.
pay for that meal, even if it's an alternative meal. I mean, you still have to buy
This
that
is the
food.
first the parent is notified of it when it reaches $40?
No, Notices have
That's
been
what
going out
that's
every
what-
week since
They've
October.
been going out.
That's what the
If-
parent
If they go out
stated.
in the mail, sometimes they'll come back, wrong address, I take it right down to the classroom. So I'm wondering if sometimes they're not getting home.
But you've been mailing them
I
directly home
mailed
and
some.
making phone calls, right?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that we can, the administration can be more participatory in that process. So maybe we need to put in another layer that if a letter has gone home and some period of time transpires, a week, five school days, and there hasn't been any communication, then it would go to Jerry's office to assist with follow-up, because the principal's office has a lot of contact with parents, and maybe that's a role that we could play.
How often does the bill go out? Is it weekly?
Weekly.
Yep,
So every week, the parents who have any balance, they get a statement.
we get something. And like I say, some of them come back in the mail because it's the wrong address.
Mhm.
I just take it right down to the classroom. They put it in the backpack, so.
Maybe it might be a good idea if you have one that comes back wrong address, that it go to the office, because that might tip us off to something
I think I have the
else.
same address that they have in the office. It's on the Power School.
But if it comes back, that has other implications for
Right.
us. So it's
Yeah.
important for us to know, if you're sending mail to the official address and it comes back, then that's something we need to know about.
There
So-
have been a couple I have checked with the office, and that's the address they have,
Okay.
you know.
Then there's a reason to look, and there's other reasons
Yeah,
to
exactly.
look into
But
that.
it's also a way to address a parent who says they're not getting statements. And if it comes back and we have documentation
Right.
saying this was sent to you, I mean, and if you didn't provide the school with a current address, I mean, we can only do so much.
Right.
So, and at least it gives us a way to respond to the parent who's saying, I didn't get anything, and it's already $40, and it's a month, and I haven't received anything. So
Exactly.
it gives us that other,
It's a tough issue.
It
I mean,
is.
it really is, because it's time consuming and,
Yeah.
when
I've
current costs.
even got
but,
calls from parents that says, oh my word, I just checked the backpack. A
right.
check is coming in.
But they can check online now.
Mhm.
Am I correct?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so maybe we need to put it in our Wakefield Weekly so that parents, again, know that they can go online
Yeah.
and check, those who have access to a computer on a regular basis, and keep track of what the child owes. That might help too.
We're currently piloting a program in 3 districts right now, interfacing with the Alert Now system
Mhm.
for collections.
No?
And it seems to have pretty good implications of success. Because what it does is you can program in, the calls that you need to make, but you're also getting a printout of the calls, and the system will actually tell you whether they answered or didn't answer, or, what have you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty strong documentation, more than, it never came out of my kid's backpack, or my address is wrong, or the other things that happen.
And-
But we should now, we've been running it for about 2 months now. So as soon as we really, get this thing a little tighter, then we'll approach you folks and see if it's something you're interested in doing.
And the information is left on their answer machine as the,
It's left as just you either have a low balance or a negative balance. It doesn't say the dollar amount or anything else. But we're finding is that they're actually responding and they're actually answering the phone because they think it's the school calling. It's not necessarily the food service calling. Because when we call, we're not going to get a response. We're going to go, whatever.
I guess my only concern is to what type of information you leave on an answer machine, because there is a
Just
law
have
that
it,
states you can't leave
this is,
any debt information on
Paul's
an answer
school
machine.
saying that, your child has a low or negative balance. Please contact the school at your earliest convenience. That's pretty much the message that's being sent. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, any negative impact on parents, being frustrated with that at this point, but it's one of the reasons we want to run it for a couple months to see if there's any downside to it. Right now, it seems pretty positive, and, collections have been on the rise. And it's a problem nationwide.
It is.
Chris, you had something you wanted to,
Nope.
you
We
had
just
something
had- we
about
just-
negative balance.
We just had the actual reports and where you're at, and, there's a group of people here that represent most of the negative balances.
Always the case.
About how many? 35?
Do you have a copy of that for us?
Sure, yeah, these are for you. We didn't make extra copies, but we can hand them directly to you.
Make it open.
Which would have the total, and there's one page with about 35 families that are representing the lion's share of that balance.
Why don't I take those, because the
Yeah, this is.
information
Yeah,
is not something that we need to be distributing.
Okay, I apologize. So, you know,
Jay, can you just fold the name page? Just take the names and fold it off so I can't
And
see
you
it
can
for a
just see
minute.
the
oh, sure,
total.
you just see the numbers.
Yeah.
So it is an issue. And again, even if you have a 3-meal charge and you're offering alternate meals and there's no end to
It
that,
still charges.
you're still running up,
Yeah.
you know, incredible balances. And if there's no response, I mean,
That's one
we
page
can only
of
send a
4.
letter home, or send a letter home with a student, or, you know, maybe make a phone call here and there, but
I'm just wondering if in some cases the people are just maybe uncomfortable filling out the application and maybe do qualify for reduced or free. and
that's usually the case.
That
I mean,
was
it really
one of the
is.
survey,
Pretty typical.
one comment on the survey, I did see that the parent was qualified, and whether or not they didn't know that they qualified or weren't comfortable.
Sometimes it's pride, sometimes they're uncomfortable
Right.
with it, you know, there's a lot of reasons for it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of need, and it's changed obviously over the last couple of years with the economic conditions.
Right.
You know, and for whatever, there's resistance to it, and especially with a NutriKid system like this, there's no overt identification like the old days when you were actually checking them off, or they had color-coded tickets and things like that, where there was a difference between the meals. So,
Well, I have to say, the deli sandwiches, my only complaint on that last food advisory board is because there was only enough for the children, so I don't know if they were good, but the kids said they were excellent.
Oh, they got me was-
No, you,
I heard that at the meeting
all I
today.
know is that the students, but they did, there was a very positive response. The kids loved the wraps and the pizza.
They do.
The pizza was kind of saucy, but the wraps they did love, and then you're going to be starting the 5th and 6th grade.
What
After
happened was I
vacation.
would have done it this week, but when I got my order in for wraps and stuff,
Mhm.
I had been shorted and I didn't have enough to go.
kind of ran out.
Yeah, kind of.
And I think that'll be very popular too.
They're gonna love it.
I'm just looking for a total on the bottom of page 4.
5874. I think it would be appropriate for the policy committee to take a look at its practices. This is the case everywhere, because as I heard Liz saying over there, you can't stop feeding the students. On the other hand, I see more than one family name here that represents hundreds of dollars of debt. And
Yeah, I mean, some of these are $200, $120, $100, $96, $142, $126,
Those
$140.
particular ones, no.
I guess my
I
concern
mean,
is
why
that,
is it going to that level?
Well,
Is-
because the policy states that you serve them an alternate meal, but you're still incurring charges.
yeah.
If we serve them an alternate meal, we're still buying that food, and we still have to charge them for
But
that
when
meal.
it gets
Wise.
to that point, are you notifying us?
I
monthly?
would say
Do
that
we
every
have
person
a-
on this list has been notified. I'm confident of that. Whether they...
No, not notifying them. Are you notifying us every month? Do we get this monthly list?
I don't know if you're for...
Actually, they have access to NutriKids right at the SAU office, so they can access it at any time they'd like. But we do also keep Andrew in the loop on where we are with negative balances.
But how we handle negative balances is either a policy matter or a procedural matter, and given the amount of controversy that it will create in town, I would prefer to have policy input on this. If the policy committee is not inclined to consider a policy, then we will develop a procedure to determine how to deal with these negative balances. There's got to be a limit, but we don't want to punish children for choices that their parents make either. It's
I don't
really a
wanna-
no-win, it's a no-win situation.
I don't want to punish
No.
students for it either. I said
No.
2 years ago, let's tell the federal government to keep their money, and why don't we just, feed these kids? And not worry about the government guidelines and what they have to have. And we can just simply provide a lunch to these kids.
That's
And we
option.
don't need to
You prefer to.
provide 5 options. We need to provide them a lunch.
It would cost
We
more
can-
than $5,000.
It would, but, I know that, Liz. But when you stop and think about it, it might not cost us that much.
It's a viable option. We run 3 programs in the state that were on National School Lunch Program that are no longer on National School Lunch Program, for similar reasons. You know,
We don't have
it was
to
more the
offer them
regulatory
5
reasons than anything else.
choices.
It allowed them to, they have full-service programs, but they're not on the program. You know, their pricing's a little bit higher, you know, because it's making up for that reimbursement dollars that you're losing. There's a little cause and effect from the commodities, but a lot of the commodity foods are hard to incorporate into menus. So you're not really losing there.
We
But
wouldn't
the actual-
be hearing complaints about the kids are still hungry because they're not getting enough food. We wouldn't hear complaints of the kids are hungry because they don't like the food.
Yes, you would.
Because we can serve them what they
Yes, you
want.
would. I've been doing this for 30 years, and you will. It's
we
the
don't
nature
have
of our
to-
business. I wish he wasn't like that.
We don't
But you
have to offer them a hot lunch and a cold lunch and a salad
No,
and a
you
la
can
carte.
streamline it.
We can simply say, this is today's lunch. You can buy it, or you can bring
Or
your
not.
lunch.
Yep, there you go. You can do that.
And that would cut, you wouldn't have to have a person at a cash register. That's gonna cut an employee out, because there is no cash register, it's free.
Right.
You would, I mean.
Hey, more power to you.
Now, the school that you said that, the school that's not involved in the National Lunch Program, do you have any figures? Have they really?
Yeah, they're profitable programs,
Okay.
but they're not giving the food away. I mean, they're charging.
Okay.
You know, and I mean, you know, in some cases, they're charging, you know, higher
Well,
than
how
a
much
school would.
time and paperwork are we putting into the federal government's paperwork that we have to fill out every month? And how much time and money are we putting into
That's all
trying to collect money?
Well, you know, the time and paperwork to file for your reimbursement is including the fee that we charge you. Okay?
So we know what that costs.
Okay, so, you know, that's the way that works. The rest of it, you know, I mean, it's not, it's very, there's a lot of restrictions now, more so than ever before. You know, and they're trying to take students that don't eat like this at home, have them do a 180 and love what we're feeding them.
It's not going to happen.
It just can't, it can't happen over time. I mean, it's changed. Kids are eating salads, they're eating yogurt parfaits, and they never used to do that. You know, they're making better choices. Some of them actually like whole wheat products. Most still don't. But it's not what they have at home. So, you know, there are restrictions here. But you can, you know, you can look at it a lot of different ways. Those programs, they charge a little bit more. It compensates for the lost revenue from the federal program, but they can serve whatever they'd like to serve.
But I also wonder if
And it
we have a lot
represents
less waste.
Yeah.
And so we could save that way too.
You know, the waste factor isn't as big as you may think it is.
Okay.
I mean, we're a tight program. You know, we purchase about $12 million of food, so your pricing is much better than, you know, anybody can walk in off the street and buy food for.
Right.
You know, we have a whole group of people that have been doing this for a long time, from purchasing agents to marketing people to operations people to mentors within the system. So, you know, there's a lot of people thinking the same way. And we learn a lot of tricks because we're in 47 school districts in New Hampshire and Vermont. So we find, you know, great practices. We have a great practices newsletter that's internal for us, and we focus food service directors from different schools. And a lot of these ideas come out of it. You know, this is a growth year. The first year of any program is very difficult. This year was exceptionally difficult because, first of all, we're new here. We had to learn it. Secondly, you had the hugest regulatory change that's ever happened in school lunch since 1962. Okay, and your program wasn't running even close to what it had to be running at. So the impact here was a lot larger than in a lot of the other districts we run, because for the last 5 or 7 years, we've been pushing towards this. So the minimal impact to those programs was a maximum impact here. Almost a perfect storm.
Well, the major gain you're going to get out of it is kids, hopefully, that have a full stomach that will probably do
Be able to
better
learn.
in school,
Right.
because they're not sitting there with their stomachs growling and they're hungry and it's to me it's.
Hey, you know, I agree with you. I didn't write the federal regulations. I'm not a big fan, and that's about as far as I can go with it.
It seems to me that we are where we are for this year, but it's not an unreasonable time of year to start looking at those other programs and maybe have some information about those other programs and their viability for next budget season. I mean, we've got 6 months before next budget season really
There's
gets
no
started.
reason why you couldn't do that in September, is there?
No, I mean, you just have to write financials. I mean, you have to know what it's going to cost.
We've got to know what it's going to cost. See
I
if
mean,
we
you
can do it
know,
within
I would
this
assume
budget.
that you want to know that.
Yes,
So,
I want to know it.
you know, we'd have to look at, you know, something, prototype, and, you know, I can get in touch with whoever wants to work with me on it, and kind of get some menu guidelines together that would be representative of this school alone, and not necessarily the federal regulation, and put some numbers to it, and tell you what you could reasonably expect. You know, because if you're not charging for lunch, you would assume that you'd have close to 100% participation.
Yeah.
So,
I would
you
think.
have to base the budget that way. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Right.
You know, at least 90 for absenteeism or ADA rate or whatever it is here.
Mhm.
So,
But it'd be worth getting the figures and be able to
and
make,
it's certainly worth taking a look at.
yeah, I mean, it's
You
always
know,
worth just seeing what our options are.
Absolutely.
And
You know,
would refusing this federal program put any of our other federal grants and programs in jeopardy?
I don't believe
Title
so.
I's tied to the lunch program.
Title I
You know,
is?
and one of the reasons that, you know, we try and push unitized meals as much as we do is because the more reimbursable meals you serve, the more funding overall the school's gonna get. I don't know why they tie it to school lunch, but they do.
But, and we'll have to look into this, none of us here are attorneys, but I believe the way it's tied to Title I is qualifying for free and reduced lunch,
I
not
think
that
so.
you have to participate in it. So I believe
It's just
that
on
we
a free
might
and
be
reduced
able
number.
to, we might be able to determine that someone qualifies, even if we're not using that program. But I'd have to do some homework
Yeah,
on
you could
that.
do that.
I'm not sure,
Yep.
but I think that's the way it works.
Well, I think there's a separate consideration and set aside
Yeah.
for McKinney-Vento that would have to be looked at very closely.
Yeah, but we can do that.
You know, and the other model for that program, if you were not participating in the federal program, is that you actually charge, you know, full-price students, full price, and then you create an expense line for the free and reduced students. So they'd still, you know, have that status, and they wouldn't pay, the other paid students would. And you could see what that financial looks like as well.
Okay. That would make sense.
I had some questions on your December operating costs. I notice under training and safety, budgeted year-to-date's $300, but only $19 has been spent on training and
That's
safety.
true. Because the training that's been going on has been part of our admin fee. That's a service that we're not additionally charging you for.
But what did you have budgeted for that hasn't taken place yet, because you budgeted money?
It's taken place, you weren't charged for it. These are the people like Shelley that comes up here. We have to pay fuel for her to get up here, we have to do some other expenses. We're taking that out of our administrative fee instead of charging you an extra line item. The program is not creating the revenue that I wanted it to create, so we're trying to be as frugal as we can.
Okay. The background check line,
Mm-hmm.
no money's been spent?
That sounds weird.
Background checks?
Oh, that should have been, I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
And
'Cause I know we did them. Yeah, I know we did those, so.
Maybe they didn't charge.
So we have to do them for every school every year, regardless.
Yeah, by law, yeah.
Right.
is that part of your admin fee as well?
No. I'm gonna get some money back if I want.
If you haven't charged up to this point, you can't backtrack.
I just want to make sure they're being done.
Yes.
Part of the original presentation we got was that you were going to purchase up to $5,000 worth of equipment
Right.
for our kitchen.
Right.
I'd like to know if anything's been purchased and what.
What'll we buy, Chris?
We have not bought anything in terms of large equipment yet.
Okay.
So far, I mean, we've been able to do what we've done with the existing equipment. Even when we roll out the bigger deli and try to go to 2 serving lines, we may be able to still do it with the equipment that's already owned by the school district.
So we'll be looking at a $5,000 credit then somewhere in the
No.
future?
No.
You're not going to give it to us? You're not going to spend
I like the way
money
you
and
think,
give it
but
to
no.
us, but you're not going to give us a credit for
You
it?
know what this is it's an anticipated expense line item. So that $5,000 that was part of the proposal was to be charged out as a depreciation line over the course of the 5-year term. What we're saying is that we're gonna go out, if we needed to buy $5,000 worth of stuff, we'd go out and buy it for you, and then we charge it over 5 years, and at the end of that, you would own it. It's a no-interest loan, essentially. If you don't need it, we don't spend the money.
That's not
These are actual
That's not
expenses.
quite the way it was sold to us, but.
No.
You're being billed on actual expenses. So if I give you a budget and, you know, our expenses, if our sales are higher, your expenses are gonna be higher. If our sales are lower, your expenses are gonna be lower. That's why we have an actual and a budget. I mean, the budget's based on information I collected through the RFP process and my best guess of my experience in similar locations. That's how the number gets written.
I looked at it like the 5,000 was there in case you need to upgrade equipment, but if we didn't need to, then we had that 5,000.
No, we said we'd invest up to 5,000.
I didn't get that part.
And basically, we're giving you no interest loan for 5 years, which is an investment. You're not having to lay the money out. We are. We're not charging you any interest for that money whatsoever. So it's a benefit to the district.
So we would know in advance if anything needs to be purchased and have the option whether or not to purchase it,
Sure.
because now we have a loan.
Well,
See, we weren't told about a loan.
No, we were told that part of
No.
the contract was up to $5,000.
That was going to be given to us, that,
Equipment.
I think you better read it again. It was invest up to, and that's basically invested buying that equipment for you. That goes over a 5-year term. My fee is $7,500. How am I going to give you $5,000?
your fee,
Yeah.
the 11,500?
Oh, $11,500. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher.
Not much.
Okay. I had a question at the last meeting regarding the expense reports, the difference in revenue between what you're reporting to us and what we have in our revenue reports.
Right. I think that's resolved.
I went through it with Bill this morning, and there's like a $700 variance, which could be part of the people that are prepaid and in arrears.
Yeah, but I want an explanation of the difference between what's on these statements versus, I'll give you an example. If you look at our bank statements, let's say for September, on your expense report, you're showing $6,365 as income,
Yep. By sales.
but only on
As-
sales.
Right. Sales and bank deposits will never match. They won't.
Well, if you're taking that money in, it should be being deposited in the bank.
That is correct, and it is. Andrew just forwarded the bank statements, which we didn't have either, to reconcile your statement. We take daily deposits, and that's how we get to the deposited total, okay? That is not the sales line, okay? Because if we have students that pay $100 on Monday, we're not gonna take $100 of that sale on Monday. We're gonna take one meal of that sale, and that's part of a prepaid account in NutriKids. Part of that whole scenario is negative balances. So you have to take the deposited, prepaid, and the negatives into account, and then you actually have daily sales. That's the activity that goes through that register every day. How many meals do we serve? How many milks do we sell? All those things. That's where the sales come from. After we spoke today,
Stop there for a second. If it's what went through the register for the month, and you're collecting the money ahead of time, then that should be the same amount at the end of the month.
No. You're running a credit debit system. I would have inflated sales and then no sales, inflated sales, no sales. What I need to do to present an accurate picture to you is show you what the volume represents, what we did in actual sales, what the expenses associated to gain those sales was to create a profit and loss statement. That's the way it has to be.
So actually, the numbers on your statements here are not actual, because that
They're
could...
not actual deposits, if that's...
Okay, but it's
you're
not
looking for.
actual income, because...
Yes, it is. You're looking at you're looking at it from a different perspective. That income represents the operation, the food service operation, what actually transpired during that time period.
All right, so you, sir, your total sales was $6,365.
Yes.
That was your total sales. That's what went through the register. That's
long
what
as that
was
doesn't
charged
include-
through the
Does
register.
that say it's, okay, that doesn't include government reimbursement?
No, it does not
Okay.
include government reimbursement. But the deposit for that month is $4,309, which is a $2,056 difference.
Right.
So if that's meals not paid for, that's 913 meals in 21 days that
Possibly,
aren't being paid for.
possibly.
So
It'd be very difficult to resolve this without the information in front. Again, we just received your bank statements. We're going to go through those. We're going to reconcile the deposited tickets that we have to verify that number. We'll also send our cash variance reconciliation to Andrew, so he can review the positive and negative balances, and the total summary of all will balance. There's a $50 variance year-to-date through January.
It's not unlike the expense report that you get monthly, because you have a budgeted amount, you have the reporting period, and then you also have encumbrances. Encumbrances are known expenses against the budget, but they haven't been booked yet. So it's really where in the timing of the movement of money you're
Right.
reporting. So what we've done for the board
But they're
is...
they're reporting the value of the sale, not the income from the sale.
Right.
So that throws our profit off. That,
Well-
you can't,
But what we've done is you have two additional columns, one of which existed all along and one of which we added last month. You have the additional column, which is encumbrances, that goes along with reporting period, and we have added anticipated because there are different steps in the process. And as you're saying, if you looked at all of the amounts across the different steps, they would all add up to the total. So it might be that what we should be trying to develop is a reporting tool that allows us to see all of those different columns, all the amounts in each step,
Right.
so that they ultimately total across. And then the board would know how much money is in each step, including how much is in arrears
Right.
at any given point. It's just a more complete way of representing the information. So that's something that we might ask if you could provide.
We could certainly work with Andrew on that. Like I said, this process, when we went through it this afternoon, we came to agreement on a number. So, it's there, it's not typically part of that report.
Right.
And take into account that, we're taking credit for a sale that you guys look at as a charge sale that student's not paying. That still is credited sale in that line. We have to charge that student, so it's gonna come up as revenue, even though there was no money transpired.
and then it just ends up being our loss at the end, right?
Well, any negative balances are. I can't control the policy. I can't own that.
But part of your service was to collect the money.
Well, we're trying to collect the money, but I can't be held to a policy that I have no control over. They're saying 3 meals. Well, 3 meals is fine, but we have $200, $300, $400 with these people, and nothing's, being done to stop it.
I guess my concern would be what your collection practices are.
We're
Because
sending
when you
weekly
get-
notices home.
Okay. when
That's
you-
about,
you
that's
get
about
an-
all we can do, and that's, as far as I know, what
When
the
you get a
policy is
notice that
required.
goes home,
Yep.
and they get past that first week, then they should be going home certified.
They-
At that point in time, then there should be
Okay,
another
but I
step
don't-
taken.
Is that part of the policy?
It,
I mean, I can't know these things unless, I'm told.
I think part of the policy, as far as the food charge, what we said is that the 3 meals and then it would go to the staple. That we're in agreement of, that's part of the policy. As far as the collection practices, having someone $200 or $300 outstanding, what steps have been taken? You send a letter home and that's it. That's not sufficient.
What would you
So I
suggest we
guess
do?
I'm-
Because you're saying that we can't stop them from
No, you
charging.
can't stop serving
Okay,
the
so we're not
child,
gonna stop
no.
serving them. We contact them. They don't respond. What are we supposed to, should we take them to court?
I think when you get to a point, yes, once you
I mean,
send
we
that
can't
letter.
do that without your policy.
Okay.
Can't do it.
My concern is that once you send the letter, and it gets to a certain point, okay, we've got the 3 meals, then we have the staple. It's getting to $100 and $250, $200, $300.
Yeah.
At that point, whether or not it's a certified letter that goes home to the parent, and then it should, we should be aware of that.
All
And
we
whether
need
or
to-
not
all we
we
need to
feel
do
that we
is
need
have
to take
provided written
action.
direction on that.
Okay.
Allow me to interject. When you reach the point that you don't feel the letters are working, communicate with the administration. The administration works for this board, and we would work with you and with the board and intervene personally to the extent that we can to help with the problem. We need to know the extent of the problem. We will get involved with the problem and help resolve it. Did you want to add something, Scott?
I do. I think that you're in a relatively new relationship and you have a policy. But the policy committee hasn't worked with the administration and cafe services on developing the nitty-gritties of the procedure. And until we do that, we can take little steps like if it gets to this level, we'll do this. But we need to take a comprehensive look at it together and try to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
So I would say that would be a good job for the policy committee and the administration to get together and try to take a look at and to invite one of you folks to join us for that.
Well, the policy committee should set the framework of what they want to have happen. And then the administration will implement procedures to make sure that that policy is complied with, and we'll work with cafe services to get that done.
Is this the first time you've received any bank statements?
Yes.
The other question I had on the bank statement was why we were depositing money on Saturdays.
They probably got out of here late, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
and missed it.
we have a paperwork we have to do on Fridays, and at the end of the month, we have monthly paperwork to do for the whole month, and plus for that week. So sometimes, one night I didn't get out of here till 5:45. So I had to do it the next morning, because they need all those statements in that paperwork to go to the company. That's why.
So that just concerns me, because we have a policy that no money's supposed to be left in the building overnight. It's supposed to be deposited daily.
That's
I
fine.
always have.
That's fine. We'll just do a night deposit. Just
Yeah,
get
that's fine.
a key. She can take care of that. It'll still be listed as Saturday
Yeah.
if she drops it in the night deposit, just FYI, but that can happen.
Well, that would be just the end of the month.
Well, it depends. Weekends sometimes, you know, it depends. If she has a special function that she's doing, you know, doing some catering after school, I mean, it could happen. We watch these things like a hawk. We really do. You know, and if there's anything more than a day out on any deposit, red flags and balloons and whistles are going off. It's, you know, the world we live in.
So I guess can we ask that the policy committee make that a priority?
We can make an appointment for next week sometime, too.
Well, the administration needs to develop the procedure.
Well, I think we need
Well,
to take,
the procedure
it
would
seems,
evolve from the policy.
it seems to me that we have a policy that might need some adjustment before the administrators make
Okay.
any procedural changes.
We'll take a look at the policy.
Well, I think we need to address these overages now, before they
Yeah.
go any higher, and we can make a
Jared,
procedure.
we'll get copies to you tomorrow morning.
Okay, and we can make some procedural interventions now, based on that, and then we can change them
Right.
as the policy
Absolutely.
evolves.
Yeah, $400 balance is a bit much. It's an awful lot to carry.
I'd like to thank the cafe services for coming into a situation where not everything was up to federal standards and doing the best they can, responding every time we have a question for them, and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you for having
Yep.
us, and you're very welcome. We're hoping to
It's a learning process.
get all this worked out and get us hitting on all the same pages here.
Mhm.
It is a process, and it, you know, it's tough. You know, that particular issue with the negative balance is tough everywhere. There's some school districts that are, you know, $50,000, $60,000.
And I think my concern as well was that I think as far as my understanding was the sales going through that register every day.
Right.
That's what we would be looking at deposit every day.
Right,
And
it's
that's-
different than that.
It
But
is.
Andrew and I could figure out a piece that would help tie that out for you guys. That'll be in addition to the statement, but it'll give you a good grip on exactly, you know, what the deposit number is, what the reimbursement number is, and what your actual sales are. And also, you'll see that prepaid balance, because you have a positive balance in that system as well, and you also have a negative balance.
Yeah,
The
because the
combination
way,
of all those going across is what we really drive
Yeah.
to.
the way this looks, if you look at the bottom, and you look at the net profit and loss, you've got a loss of 76.41.
Right.
But if you add in that 58.74, you need to add that 58.74 to it, because that's the loss in.
I mean, I don't, the SFA does. See, one of the problems, and this is part of that learning curve, is that, I think, when people feel they hire a food service management company, they go, okay, here you go, take care of it, not my problem. But we only do it on your behalf. The school food authority is still the one who's in charge of this program. So for example, when you do this policy and procedure, communication in that policy needs to come from the school, because it's your program. It's not ours. We're operating on your behalf. When you get your commodities, when you get your reimbursement, they're not having anything to do with cafe services. They're having everything to do with the Paul School. And you guys are, very much in charge. I can't go in here and say, okay, well, next week when it raise the prices, it's $3 a piece because we're not making any money. I'd have to recommend, say, look, this is why, we're looking at price increase for X, Y, and Z. What are your thoughts? Here's both financial pictures. Tell me what you'd like me to do. And that's how that, that's how that relationship starts to work.
I think we need to be notified much sooner, and I think I'd rather see a report, whether it be once a month, or twice a month, to see where we're at, rather than waiting
Sure.
until they get to this point, and then
You
now
can have it
we
every
have.
week.
Yeah.
Right? She's doing it every week. It takes no time for us to do it. We just, again, not knowing, and it's different every place
Right.
we run.
I think it'd be helpful, don't you think, have a weekly report?
The more information you have, the better off you're going to be.
Well, I
in my
think so,
opinion.
because it would help us to see the clear picture of what's actually going on.
Absolutely.
Have you seen our policy on meals and food?
Chris has, actually. I wasn't involved
You
in
have
that
not seen it?
stage, so. But I'm sure that
Before
we
any
can figure that out.
reports go anywhere, I want them to come through me. This information is some of the most highly protected legal information that we have in schools. So any report that's going anywhere, until we have policies and procedures that provide clarity over who gets what information, I don't care how often you guys want it, I want it to come to me, and I will make sure that
Block
it's
the names.
distributed appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll send it, you can send it to you weekly, Jay. No problem.
Me or Andrew is
Okay.
fine, you can continue to work through it, I just want to
Yep.
make sure
Yeah.
that I'm protecting the
We're just
the
interested
board's
in numbers,
liability.
nothing
Understood.
else.
Yep.
It's just the numbers. We don't need to know anyone's name.
So what kind of assurance do we have going forward that we're not going to sign a contract with you for another year extension, and then all of a sudden the newsletters don't get done, and the
Well, I think,
food
honestly,
advisory committee doesn't happen?
honestly, I think it's the communication piece we discussed a little bit last time, and we're still not done with it. We have to. If there's a problem, then I would suggest that anybody on a board contract, Andrew, he can call me any day of the week. If it's not getting resolved between Chris and Ruth, then I need to know, straight up. And as soon as I know, I can do something about it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things that I was unaware of between last meeting and this meeting that I'm getting a better picture of where we're at. So that information helps
I think that
me.
you really need to look at those surveys carefully, the
Mhm.
comments, especially the ones from the staff,
Mhm.
because they're in the lunchroom every
Sure.
day.
Sure.
And some of those were not real great.
Okay.
So I really think you need to
Well,
look
we'll
at
do
the
it. Once,
staff
now that we have them, we'll
and
go
the
through it.
parent ones.
Mhm.
And hopefully we'll see some corrections. Thank
I'm
you.
confident you will.
Did the board have any other questions? Or?
No, I think my only concern is that, like I said, if you read the surveys, and just be able to address the parents, seriously with their concern, and whether it's one or two or 100 of them, I think we really need to address each one of them.
Well,
Even though they're anonymous on
Right.
the survey.
We don't,
yeah, we'll address them.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you so much for coming out again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I really think we need to get rid of the headache of the federal government's guidelines
and-
and just
in many
Just
situations.
if we offer one lunch, I mean, this is a lunch today. This is what's for lunch. You can either bring your own, or we'll give you this. I mean,
We'll check the repercussions first.
doesn't make any sense to me. Minutes of the last meeting. Page 1.
Is it for the reading month or the Dr. Seuss?
Well, I had a question
Dr.
on number
Seuss.
4.
Yeah.
Brought
wasn't
to the
sure how it
board,
should
up
be.
to the date on the plans for the Dr. Seuss reading program.
Right.
How's that?
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss Reading
Program.
Program 2013.
March 2013.
Okay.
Anything on page 1, Liz? No. Page 2. Page 3.
I got it, Mrs. Basin.
No, Scott, I got it.
It'll take you too long to get there.
Enjoying the out-of-seat time.
Page 3?
Yes.
5, 6 lines up from the bottom. To improve their discipline. If definitely, he mentioned that his spending time with students actively trying to improve their discipline
Is definitely.
Okay. And a couple of sentences down, Mr. McIntyre noted that he is seeing, no jealously from the...
Jealousy.
Jealous.
And I think in the third line from the bottom, I believe affects is the
Affects.
proper word right there.
Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. Was indeed sabotaged by or
Anything else? Is there a motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does any,
I didn't get the names of who made the motion.
Steve and
Steve,
Deb.
and you.
Is there any corrections to the non-public? Can you take care of those now?
No.
You all set on those now? Yep. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Spalding residency forms, Jay?
We've sent two letters home and are not getting a lot of responses. I've had some communication with Mr. Hopkins in Rochester, and he has not expressed any interest in their resuming the role that they used to have. So we continue to communicate back and forth about my opinion about why that might be helpful, and his opinion that it's, that it's not something that they want to be working on at this point. So I would say we continue to be in communication, and we.
Well, we're not
It's-
paying the bill without
We're not
the
paying the bill
Yeah.
until the residency forms, yeah. The first bill that came in, we paid the portion of it for which we had residency forms. They are ready to mail the second bill and are hoping that we will be able to pay the rest of the first bill in full and the full second bill, but we're only going to be able to pay for the students for whom we have evidence that they're actually from Wakefield.
So
it's-
we have how many?
Proof, I don't think these are total, so let me just add them up.
Last time we had the truant officer to deliver them. Maybe it's time to
Use
get
that
Wayne
again.
involved again and have him deliver them to their residents.
I count 96, so somewhere between 90 and 100 since I was counting
That we
quickly.
don't have.
We have returned. We are lacking. It's going to be pretty close. I get about 90 that we're lacking and 96 that we have.
So about half we don't have? And that doesn't encourage them to help out where they're not gonna get paid.
Well, I don't, I don't want to characterize, I don't want to characterize Rochester's choice. They're making the choice that they're making. I continue to be in communication with Mr. Hopkins, and he understands that we're only paying for students for whom we have information, and hopefully he'll have some ideas for me of other creative ways that we can pursue that information, but it's an ongoing discussion, but we're only paying for those students that we have evidence.
Do you think we should be utilizing our truant officer in order to?
We're going to have to do something,
Yeah,
and I'd like to have another week or two to see if we can get in a few more, because asking the truant officer to go after 90 people, if it was 25 people, that'd be one thing, but 90 is an awful lot of people. So
Well, they've already got 2 letters
They've
home,
already
so
got
they're
2 letters,
ignoring it.
so-
So
Mhm.
I think we need to do something.
I can't argue with that.
Maybe Wayne could start with a phone call, if a phone call came.
Do we know that the ones that we don't have, do we know, are they even showing up? Are they actually attending? Do we have any kind of
Cross-reference.
information as to?
I don't have that on the list that's in front of me. All I have is a list of proof of residency. Some of them have withdrawn and have left for whatever reason, and that's all I have on here is the name and whether or not we have the form or whether they've withdrawn.
But those that you have the name, you know that they haven't withdrawn. Is there any way maybe that we could just do a letter to Spalding High School and ask that they match it up against their attendance? Because then maybe they're not attending, and they have moved just notified everyone. But if we can,
Well, they shouldn't be sending us a bill for kids that aren't attending. This is from their bill.
right, but if we take that and ask them
Can you-
just that one step, if they could match it with their attendance, I mean, that's just one more step that we have to verify.
Can we
Yeah.
cross-reference it, Scott, on their report cards on Infinite Campus?
Oh.
I mean, if they have a
We-
report card, but see, that still doesn't verify where if they live
Right,
here.
exactly.
No.
There's different things that can be done to whittle that list down for the truant officer.
Okay.
And we have I don't know if we have the time, but we have the capabilities to do that. I can verify things through the special education process. I can verify things through actual attendance records. You can verify things off of Infinite Campus with family members of students that are registered in Paul School.
Right.
You can, I don't think, and we've talked about this, that it's an efficient use of Mr. Robinson's time to be chasing down that number. The number last year that we chased down was under 50. This is almost double that. So there are different things that
Well, what about the social worker?
that we can do. That
Yeah.
could be, but I think there's some things that we can do to whittle the list down first before we start.
But it's not a matter of whether or not we can prove they have a report card or prove that they're in a special
not
ed
proving
program. It's not
residency.
proving their residency.
But
I mean,
you can cross-reference a student at the Paul School who you know is in a family, and you know that kid, you can do that way. And you can,
Well, it doesn't mean that the student at the Paul School's a resident either.
but there would be a residency
We
record
would
at
have
the
the
Paul
residency
School
form on
Right.
that
that you
student.
could
though.
verify.
Mhm.
But we
There
shouldn't have to
are-
do this. We're paying tuition for their children to go to school. They should at least have the decency to fill out the form.
You're right.
You know?
Right, actually, in a very idealistic way, you're correct, but that's not our reality right now.
But they still have to be admitted at school. They still have to be allowed to attend school, even though we don't have proof that they're a resident.
Not necessarily.
Well, maybe if they're not allowed to attend school until we get the proof of residency, that might encourage some.
I would respectfully request, let us pull that trigger of the truant officer at the next meeting. Give us the 2 more weeks in between to try to do some of this other legwork and see if we can, if we can only get 20 names off this in the next 2 weeks, that's 20
Still
less
20
names for the
less.
truant officer.
Yeah.
We'll keep working away on it.
Bus repairs?
The bus repair question was,
That was left over from last.
yeah, it was whether or not any students had been billed for damages to seats. Thus far, there have been 3 students that have been billed. One is a Paul School student, and 2 are Spalding High School students. Some of the reasons that there haven't been more bills is that not all of the seats have been repaired at once. So what Tim reported is that that during February vacation, all of the bus seats will be repaired. So every time the driver identifies a damaged seat, it will be new. And we'll be able to go back. So they have been using the tapes, and thus far, three students have been billed. And I expect there'll be a few more billed, and then eventually, I expect we'll see some
Someone else will pay
less-
them $36
less-
for a roll of tape.
Are they walking the bus in between,
That's the expectation. That's what I communicated to Tim that I wanted them to do, and so that's why he responded and said, doing that, 3 have been found, but we can't find all of them because there's still some rips that need to be repaired.
So start
So
off
that's the
fresh
next
with them all
step. Start
repaired.
off fresh.
but they are walking the bus after each trip?
That is my understanding. That's what I asked him to do, and that's what he told me, that he has set the expectation for them. Now, if
If he finds the bus
We-
unlocked, he's writing up the driver.
Oh,
yeah,
Okay.
so I think we're making progress.
Andrew, are you working on the ink bid?
We had a question about the ink bid.
The question I have about the ink bid is that in total, it's more than $3,000, but it's not for one item.
And it's not one order, it's
Right.
orders over
Several orders
time.
over, the course of the school year, so it's going to be difficult how do you go out and bid something like that? We're not bidding all other supplies, why would we bid on inkjets?
because that was changed midstream, and we had,
The
I'm
company
sorry, can I
that's-
answer that?
The Varied Technologies, not just inkjets, they actually repair the printers as well if there's or replace them if there's a problem with the printer. It's not just inkjets.
But at that time, we had both companies in place, so that was the reason for putting out the bid, to see if we had savings with the company we had been doing business with versus the Varied Technologies that came midstream. So that was the reason for putting out the bid, because it did go over $3,000, and this is a company we have been doing business with, is whether or not we are going to just have everything through Vari Technologies, or are we going to give this company that we've been working with for 10 years the option to be able to bid on the same services, so that we make, an educated decision.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Just so we have the figures. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we're saving.
I was under the impression you just wanted inkjets, the ink themselves. not
No, the service.
the full
What
service.
we're being provided to go out to bid, and that's what we had talked about, and to see whether or not the Vari Technologies was able to match, or the other company that we had in place, and give them the option to be able to bid on the same service where we had been dealing with them.
Yeah. Jerry, did we find out about the snack machine?
I talked with Viv today, and they had a wellness committee meeting. The wellness committee moved to have the snack machine completely removed.
Okay.
And I support that.
Okay.
The Wellness Committee also has changed some in terms of who is serving on it, and they've adjusted some of the focus of their work.
Okay.
There was a question, if I recall, one of the board meetings, where the funds were going from the snack machine in the cafeteria.
Yes.
Yes.
If you look at the expense report from Cafe Services, there's a line item there for vending machine.
But that's the juice one.
That's the drinks.
Okay,
It's
okay.
not the snacks.
Not the snacks.
Because
The
that's
snack
that's where the
we-
money's going for the juice.
Right. Yeah, it's the snacks.
I mistook that for the,
Yeah.
okay.
We don't receive any income from that
No.
machine.
No, so we had, the Wellness Committee had voted to just remove it.
Correspondence. We received a letter from Priscilla in our packet, and she has asked that that be withdrawn. I just received a letter from Pam Lyons and Kathy Cuddy. It's just a copy of a thank you letter to the Lions Club for their generous contribution to the Paul School Read Across America program. Under Administration, Curriculum Coordinators Report. You have that in your packet. Is there any questions? Student Services Report. Any questions?
No.
Jerry, we didn't get a
You didn't get one,
principal's
so I'm going to
report.
give it to you verbally.
Okay.
Freshman Forum was held on Monday night after having been rescheduled due to weather, poor weather a couple of weeks back. Connie Littlefield, the Spalding High School Guidance Council, came to visit. She brought a couple of students from Spalding, former Paul School students, and they came and spoke to only two of our students who showed up. I think that part of the reason that we didn't have a big turnout was because of the delay, and the students had already made the choices in classes. I think probably a lot of the questions had been answered, so we didn't have, I'd say, a large turnout. We had two students show up. But they did a great job in presenting the information to the students and answered those questions. That was great. Student Council had a successful flower sale on Valentine's Day. The remaining flowers were brought over to the Branch River Common for the residents there to enjoy.
Nice.
It was very
And
nice.
they
I
do
guess
it
that's
every year.
typical that they do every year, and I know it sounds like they appreciated it a great deal. Our 7th and 8th grade students, they set a wonderful example this past week by participating in Reading Buddies with 1st and 2nd grade. A lot of smiling little guys down in the elementary wing. And our 6th graders, they stepped up and I will slow down.
I gotta write this.
Oh, I can email this to you.
Please do.
I will. My apology. Several 6th grade students participating in Bright Beginnings in the reading program, the Reading Buddies down there. So I think, again, 7th and 8th graders had this great example. A handful of our 6th graders are going to be participating with our really little guys in the preschool program. And students, I mentioned earlier, will be having their kneecap reward assembly on Friday afternoon, early enough so that if parents, when a child receives the prize, we can call them and say, do you want us to send it home, or do you want us to send? You want to come pick the iPad up, or something of that nature? So we'll be doing that on Friday afternoon. And we had about, I think we had 254 kids who either made proficiency or made 10% growth from last year's scores. So I think that's quite commendable.
How many iPads?
We had one iPad that was a gift when we signed up with Gaskus, so I put that aside
Right.
to hold on, and the two Color Nooks and the two Kindle Fires.
Oh, no.
So some good prizes going out on Friday.
Good question.
On these students that are making these wonderful games, have you done anything about the certificate I suggested we
Yeah,
have
actually,
drawn up?
I'm going to show that to you right now. This is what it will, this is just a model if you want to take a look at it. Just a congratulations, not for anything basically, from the board, and have the a place with a signature for the school board chair. Basically saying your hard work and effort are appreciated. You make the whole community proud of your accomplishments.
Okay.
And put that on a cardstock, like a sheepskin style cardstock, and send that out so it could be a framing quality. And we can change that again. This is just kind of a sketchboard in there. It could look like it could read anything actually.
How many kids? 200?
254 kids. So we have 254 names going into that
That's
bundle.
awesome.
But they went up 10%?
Kids who either made proficiency, or they're students who would have made 10% growth. So if they ended up, say they didn't make proficiency, and what we're trying to do is make sure we honor all those kids who made growth no matter where they started from, and really looking at how they compare themselves against themselves, instead of how the state compares their proficiency, and looking at just honoring that their hard work is still being appreciated.
That's good.
So Liz, were you thinking of us sending these to them?
Not sending, but handing them to them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. This is a little thin, I think.
Mm.
Are you talking just for the kneecap? Are you talking just for kneecap, or?
No, any prize of any kind,
Yeah.
whether it's spelling or attendance or achievement or whatever.
Well, again, it can be, that narrative can say whatever you want. I wanted to give you an example of what
Yeah.
something could look like.
Yeah, you could
certainly-
put-
and you could tailor it for every activity you have. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, you want to say great job on the spelling bee, or, super job in participating in reading buddies, or whatever it might be. And again, just this being a model for what it would look like.
Yeah, because we could have here their name and then say for outstanding achievement on the kneecap tests, or making proficiency on the
Right.
kneecap tests, or,
It can be used, and again, it would be something that would be uniform, I guess, and the kids, who knows, the kids could have them lining on their walls.
but you need this for Friday?
No,
To
I
hand
can,
out Friday?
I can tailor this up however we want for Friday.
Then you'll have to come in and sign a lot of papers.
Yeah, I'll just have to come in and sign them, that's all.
Or sign one before the copies are made.
Oh,
Yeah, we can do that too.
that would be easy. But that really
I was gonna
isn't.
say, I just want to say, I think signing every single one of them is a nice personal touch.
It is.
Yeah,
I think it is a bit impersonal when we photocopy.
I wouldn't
a signature.
photocopy a signature, that's.
I
You're
tend
gonna
to sign
do it,
all
take
my,
the time.
certificates when I do them, and come graduation time, the stack can be pretty high, and I'm pretty cramped
Well,
up.
if you can have them made, I can find time to
Yeah,
sign.
Nate has it all set up on the cardstock, and we'll roll them out. Do you want to, what do you want to say, just what it says
You wanna
there?
What do you
Change
want it
that?
to say? Liz?
Oh, I don't know, I'll think about it for a little while.
Okay.
Liz, you can email me that if you want, tomorrow.
Or why don't you let them know before you leave tonight?
Yep.
Okay, expense report with the anticipated expenditure column.
Yeah, remember last time we talked about the fact that encumbrances only get included if we know to whom they're going to be encumbered. So
Right.
an example is elementary teacher salaries. We know who it is we have to pay the remaining $680,000, but substitute, under substitutes, we don't know.
Right.
But we do anticipate using it. So rather than having it appear that we had $11,000 left over, we've created a new column that shows what we anticipate spending, even if we don't know exactly where. The goal of this is to give you a more accurate reflection in the right-hand column and at the bottom of the whole document about how your budget is functioning so far. So that's why we've added that column. Any questions for me or Andrew on this?
Yeah, under regular ed new furniture and fixtures, I had asked about the cubbies for the math manipulatives
Yeah.
for kindergarten.
They had no clue what I was talking about.
They had no idea.
When I went and asked about, I said, cubbies for anything. Were they math manipulatives? Were they cubbies for the wall? Did you want storage space of some sort? You know, again, I explored every avenue what you could.
And you told them it was for the math?
I said for math, and then I opened it up for everything else.
Wasn't that the same discussion with the hooks as well, when we had talked about?
Mhm.
I think,
It
I think
wasn't-
that, they were also talking about the hooks for the kindergarten. We had a discussion about that. And it was at
Jerry
the
wasn't
same
around.
time.
Yeah,
for that.
I went and explored everything possible storage component you could possibly think of.
No, I'm just thinking of
And
my
they had
trigger.
no clue what I was talking about.
Okay. I guess it's-
Oh, that's just so interesting, because we had quite the conversation about that when we budgeted for it, so had to have it. Under the, under the guidance social worker health, there's an amount remaining. It occurs to me that those might look like buyouts, and that should be either encumbered or in the,
I'll check with Cheryl in the morning.
Okay.
After that.
why is there money left over in the transportation bus lease? $30,000. And it's not anticipated to be spent.
No, it's
It's
not.
a budgeting error. What happened is I found out that they budgeted for a lease on a bus that had terminated last year.
Oh, okay.
So there were two payments included that should not have been.
Okay. So right now, we're looking at approximately a $600,000 surplus?
Yeah, and that's,
That's right now. A lot of
That's
things
right
could
now,
happen.
and that doesn't include transfers to the trust funds, that, you know, there's,
Yeah, I think it did, didn't it?
I think there was one that was included,
Kind of hold this thing.
the asbestos.
All right, so the rest of those have to come out?
Yeah.
So those should be over in the,
Well, you can't really,
Anticipated column?
It's in the anticipated column.
I don't see it in the
no,
anticipated
they're
column.
not, they should be.
Yeah, that's,
Only the one is in the
asbestos
anticipated.
is the only one.
That could be the wrong thing.
You need the roof, the transportation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the other ones are all expended in the reporting period. The other ones have already been spent.
We just transferred the 117.
Oh, okay, so we are all good with that. then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the budget is in very good shape.
100,000.
Okay, we received the profile bank statement. We haven't received January's cafe services statement.
Not as of today, we haven't.
Yep, and according to their contract, it's supposed to be here by the 20th of the month, so add that to one more thing.
It's in the mail. I don't know if the holiday on Monday delayed it.
Did anyone have any questions on Jay's administrative update?
One of the things I thought I might give you 30 seconds on is on the administrative team agenda. I know I've mentioned that we address emergency functions at every meeting, and I just included the tabletop exercise as a list there. So just quickly, what that happened to be was I wrote up a scenario and had the administrative team divide up into schools. So Jerry and Nate, and did you have Mary or Scott on your team?
No, Mary and I were in Milton Elementary.
So was it Andrew?
It
Were
was
you on there
Andrew.
too? So we divided up
Yeah,
within
Andrew.
schools, and then I gave them an exercise. This particular exercise related to a fire on a bus with other buses parked nearby, students coming and going, and how it would be managed. So I gave them the scenario, and then 15 seconds later, I gave them more information about what had happened. Another 10 seconds, I gave them more information, and they were responding on the fly to how they would be handling that emergency. That's an example of a tabletop exercise. It happened to be the one we did at this administrative team related to a bus fire. We don't always do tabletop exercises, but it's an example of how we work continuously to be prepared for emergencies.
Social studies curriculum.
Yeah, we spoke with our rep over at McGraw-Hill, and there were several items that we did not receive when they were ordered. So we clarified that. Actually, the rep was great at getting back to us. I think he emailed her, and 4 minutes later she called me back. So she was quick to respond. And it looks like we're going to be ordering not so much textbooks, but some teacher editions, which the teachers feel like they need just to facilitate discussion, along with to using the 6-year subscription. We have the online textbook that we're using.
Have they been able to get online? Because that
They're
was an
just
issue.
now, because they had it, they were a bit shocked that we didn't have it from McGraw-Hill, so we worked that out, and for some reason, they just had not sent that to us, and the people we talked to weren't able to facilitate or know what we were talking about when we spoke with them at McGraw-Hill back now around November. They said what we had is what we had, which was not the online subscription, but yet another database that we were using, which was different than the online subscription, which was given to us free, but it was given to us free, but we didn't have it. So now we have it, and we can use that, and the teachers are pretty happy with that. I got a few teachers want to use the hardcover textbook rather than just using the online piece. And we'll go with
So
that.
they'll be getting their textbooks.
Correct.
For the whole classroom?
No, just the teacher's
edition?
And that's all they wanted. They didn't want everybody to have a textbook, but they wanted to have their own book so they could facilitate their own, facilitation of that lesson plan with that part of the curriculum.
Okay. Do you have a price on the materials that they want to order?
Not on that one right there, but we have again, we just ordered.
I'm actually
the piece.
meeting with Carol, the rep, in March, and she's going to be providing the quote for that
Okay.
during that meeting.
Okay.
So we can update you as we go.
But everything else is a fair bit too. There's some atlases and things of that nature that we're missing out of the order. But we'll finally get that squared away.
How are we going to make out with this online with our server? Do we have enough space or?
It's not what's online, so it's in the cloud. It's really more for us. It's going to be when the issue is when we get online. When too many kids are getting online at the same time, we tend to bog down, our DSL. And I'm not sure how we rectify them. Like, we are pretty tapped out. Like when we had our 8th grade choosing their classes a couple of weeks ago, I had to make an announcement. Nobody else in the building is allowed to get online until later on this afternoon, until we have this all taken care of. Again, it was all done online, so we could bog down our entire system. There are days that our system runs pretty slow. The other option is, I know that Milton has gone to fiber optics, although fiber optics is not in town yet. So it's kind of one of these things. They've set the building up for the fiber optics, but yet fiber optics is not there yet, and really we'll bump into that. I expect, with more of the cloud services, with the smarter balance coming. Part of our requirements are to use more videos, to use more non-fictional materials that are coming through streaming, that streaming media that we purchased. That's going to be a real challenge. We'll see how it goes, but we may have to find a way to bring in a stronger feed into the building.
We addressed this at our.
Just rewiring.
It's an extra.
I'm not sure it's wiring. It's going to be the service coming into the building. I think we can handle with what we have. With what we have for wiring list, but I think it's going to be really what we can get into the building, and that's the same thing they bumped into over at New. Was they had the fiber optics now in place. They can handle any load that they can muster from the students. but it's what are we getting insights? If you can imagine your services coming in, back when we all first got internet back, 25 years ago, dial-up. If you could imagine your pipeline was about the size of your pencil coming in, about that kind of diameter, that's the amount of information that's coming through now. Now with streaming, you're looking at a sewer pipe that you need access to handle all the material coming through, because you just can't get that much information to all these computers at the same time.
So Scott, we're looking at
Vivian
you
was asking
to-
a question. It's an external. It's not a building infrastructure issue. It's an internet
Yeah.
service provider issue. So you can only go.
As fast
I
as
mean,
Time
you can
Warner
only
will
go as fast as whoever your internet. I don't know who your internet
But even in
service
like
provider
in
is.
Rochester,
I believe.
even in Rochester, we can't get the fiber optics.
Right.
I mean, it's not just because you're here in Wakefield. It is nationwide. The technology is there, but as Scott said, the infrastructure for the cities and the towns are not there yet.
How much is that social studies program depending on that? I mean, are we going to have a class that's going to try to get on and do a lesson and they're not going to be able to because we don't have the capability?
No, I think you're probably going to see things moving a little slower than you'd like. I mean, we're an age of instant gratification when it comes to internet and database. We get upset when we're waiting more than 30 seconds for our email to download or our picture to upload. So it's just going to be a matter of time. So I think there may be some frustration, and we may have to look at some time management on that. But we're not using it just for social studies. We're using it with our iPads. We're using it with our Mac Airs. We're streaming, a lot of information for kids, and we need to do that to keep them up to speed. So when they get to Rochester, we don't find that our students are lagging behind.
My only concern is the teacher being in the middle of the lesson, half the class not being
Was
able.
it a question of scheduling, type of schedule, who could use what, when, and give each teacher one of those, and they'll know when their time slot is there?
It could be, Liz, but again, because it's being used across the content areas, it's not just social studies,
Yeah.
it's language arts and it's math, and it's even in the UAs. Mike Hendrick in music, he's using technology.
Well, they wouldn't be all scheduled from 9 to 12. They'd be broken up through all the day.
No,
Hopefully.
But I think that's just it. They're certain classrooms are doing the UAs at one time, while they're doing reading at another point, and math at another, and it is. I think because it's being used across the content areas, I don't know if we really could manage that. That's
See,
certainly
we didn't
something to
have
look
this
at.
problem when we had the software where you just pop the CD in the machine.
But we still like today. Today the internet was incredibly slow, and I'm not quite sure what else was going on in the building. If they were downloading stuff in 7th grade or doing GarageBand and music, but today trying to get our internet was kind of loggy.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just add one more, it's not just the teachers. It's Power School. It's Easy IEP. It's Ames Web, your benchmarking system. All that stuff runs the same way.
Oh, yeah.
So it's your employees and your students and your teachers
Right.
who are impacted.
And we did have data meetings where we were looking at Ames Web data today, so we may have been taking a little bit of that baud rate.
You really weren't. I mean, that's only one computer.
Yeah.
That's only one computer, but if you've got several teachers, like you said, using Easy IEP, or bogging down with Power School, and you've got other people that whatever they're downloading for the class, as they're maybe creating a video or some kind of multimedia.
Yeah. Or if you have multiple platforms open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
If
can.
you're in Power Teacher, Power School, Easy IEP, transferring information, it's 3.
And if you're not managing the iPad well, if people aren't remembering to shut down the programs within the iPad, you're drawing little bits of information all day long. You could have 120 iPads drawing little bits of information, which can bog it down.
But like the social studies, if they're in the middle and they can't log on, they have a backup plan, they'll be able to continue their lesson some other way.
Well, we can talk about that, but it's not just social studies. It's any class that's using.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the
multimedia.
reasons why the teachers wanted the teacher's edition, so that they could look ahead to see if they can plan for something
Okay.
that's in class that wouldn't be dependent necessarily on the online portion, that they could actually download the day before, have it ready for those kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons, at least in talking to the 5th grade on the social studies issues. I think that was one of the reasons why they requested the teacher edition.
Now, can they also like download worksheets and
Yes.
samples
Yes.
of that? So
All
they
of
could
that
do
is
that
online.
ahead of time rather than
Absolutely.
doing, okay.
As long as they're not all trying to do it at the same time.
Right. Right. I'm gonna try to take things a little bit out of order here so we can let people go. Scott, I don't see anything, policies you might want to stay for. I'm just trying to,
Fine. I'm just gonna get up and walk.
you're okay?
I'd be helpful if you need it.
Oh, don't worry, I got, good.
Okay.
Andrew, if you can tell me what the
Don't
cost
recap,
of the
Mary,
Wakefield
please.
website is?
When I talked to Warren, he says at this time, it's probably no more than $1,500. It might be less, but it wouldn't exceed the $1,500.
Okay, and where were we thinking of taking that out of the budget?
I was looking at the technology line.
Okay. And the telephone system that's on here, is that a budget item, or is that your two, Andrew?
The E-rate application has been submitted, and I'm talking with Time Warner about switching to the internet telephone service in July.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to have a contract signed by March 8th to qualify for E-rate.
Oh,
So I'm sending Time Warner all the information she needs to give us a contract, so I could have it for you for the next, I'll have the attorney look at it, and I'll have it for you at the next board meeting.
okay. Okay.
And even Time Warner agrees that we probably need to keep 2 regular Fairpoint lines, so if the power goes down or the internet goes down, we still have phone service with you. She said it's more for the alarm system than to call for emergency. So many people have cell phones, be able to use that. But Time Warner's cost and Fairpoint's cost just for the telephone line is the same, so there wouldn't be any increased cost, but you wouldn't be paying for long distance.
Oh, that's good.
So it basically cut the phone bill substantially.
Right, because everything's on distance.
So why do you need 2 from Fairpoint? One for the alarm and one for use?
Well, the alarm systems are on 2 phones, for the fire department and the police department.
It's 2 separate lines.
I have a call into the security system too to find out.
2 separate lines for them?
Yep.
Well, they're both on 2 lines as a backup. So you have the fire and police on one line and the fire police on another line in case one of the lines go down.
Oh, okay, you could back up.
But I have a call into the security company to find out what their take is on whether we need a Fairpoint line or we could do the Time Warner line for that.
All right. I think you're all set, Andrew. If you want to leave here, you can. Just trying to make it easy for people here so they don't have to stay all night.
We appreciate that. Thanks.
I have a question on the telephone. Can I do that before he leaves?
Quickly.
Are you under the, do you have the information that when the cable goes out, you lose your Time Warner phone, or if the power goes out, you lose your Time Warner phone? So that might, and that's just from running businesses. I know that if Time Warner, if they're working on the cable, it shuts down everything, and you lose everything. It's not like a regular Fairpoint line, so that might cause the school issue.
That's why we're keeping 2 lines.
I didn't know.
Landlines.
I had heard that, but I just wasn't sure if that's.
That's basically the reason. And
The 2
plus,
landlines.
they say, mostly everybody in the school has cell phones, so you have that as a backup as well.
Okay, I was hearing phone lines and I was just, sorry. But thank you.
Are we having 1 meeting here tonight, or are we having 2 meetings here tonight? Would you like to join us? Mary, you're up with the kneecap results.
Actually, Jerry has, I think, what he wanted to share with that.
Pass that on.
Simply because we did all the charts before. I didn't know if he still wanted to see those, but he's got some, a summary report that I created.
I have.
I do have them, but.
No, those were really, they were great.
Thank you.
you're not in your seat, you miss it.
Well, that's, you said the graphs the last meeting we had, to go over the kneecap break, and Mary created this narrative. Let me just, I'll just summarize. You see, this is looking at the cohorts also. Looking at the cohorts also, really if I can just direct your attention to each grade level with the bottom line, you know, aside from third grade, because we don't have any prior data for third grade. And you see that as we match up against the state, you know, 69% in math to 74% for the state, and 59% in reading, as opposed to 78% in the state. And as you know, I think it was pointed out at our last meeting, the upside is the longer our students are with us, the stronger students they become. So while we see third grade not matching up to the state right now, we are seeing that that's, you know, balancing out as we move along, and that really is our end goal, is that when they leave here, they're matching up against the state, or they're stronger. In fourth grade, you see we have an increase, you know, a significant growth increase in both math and reading, and I think that's pretty important to note that as soon as that group, while it's not the same group, you see a similar score in math in our third grade group that's in fourth grade this year is when they were in third grade. So you know, they started out as a 67, they jumped up to 82, and I think that's important to note also. In fifth grade, we see an increase of about 2%, a slight increase in math, and that's pretty typical across the state. We're seeing, you know, math is that slower growth area between math and reading. And then you see that significant growth again for reading from fourth to fifth grade for our current fifth graders to an increase of 9%. And again, there isn't anything to the last line in that is in the fifth grade group is the fifth grade's writing component of the kneecap, and they have a 68% as opposed to 58% with the state. So we're showing again that language arts area for our school is increasing pretty well, doing very well.
I'd like to add a piece on that. What I see in a lot of places around the state is there's so much emphasis on the reading and the math that you see some really, really poor writing scores. Mm-hmm. And to me, seeing a writing score that's 10% above the state suggests that in the Paul School we haven't lost track of some other parts of the curriculum as much as has been the case in some other places.
For sixth grade, we see a slight increase in math, and again, not atypical for the region or even for the nation, that for that matter, a slight increase in math, where we see that 10% increase for reading as they move from fifth grade to sixth grade. They had that 69 to 79% in reading, and again, math, the writing piece is only measured in fifth grade and eighth grade for this level. In seventh grade, they're holding their ground in math, so there's not an increase or a decrease, but staying steady at 75%. And a slight decrease in reading of 1%, going from sixth to seventh grade. And looking at our numbers, that really is, if you can say, like half a child.
Yeah.
You know,
but I also want to let you take a look at what the state is doing during that same time period. So the state dropped 4%. But our kids only dropped 1%. So we're still ahead of the state. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And a slight decrease, from for our eighth grade students, going from 67 to 65% in math, but an increase of 5% in reading, and slightly behind in writing, being 66% as opposed to 68% for writing for eighth grade.
This is the last year.
Nope, we have one more year of kneecap before we switch to the Smarter Balanced.
I thought this was our last year.
No, we have one more fall, and then we skip the following fall, and we have the Spring Smarter Balance for 2015.
Okay. And we'll continue with the kneecap for science for a few years. It's not going to drop off because science is not ready with Smarter Balanced yet. Okay. So that's going to be.
And we're moving it to May.
The regular fall test will now be moved to May, correct, right? To spring. Mm-hmm.
So we do get a reprieve
Right.
the start of the 14-15 school year, where we don't have to do that fall kneecap, which I think is gonna be nice.
When will we get our AYP status?
That won't usually come until late April, I think. It takes a while for the state to compile all the safe harbor information and everything else.
And these results go home to parents on Friday?
Okay. Each individual student's.
Correct, they get their own scorecard.
Yeah.
Report card, I guess, for the kneecap.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Mary, if you want to head out. you're
Oh, thank
welcome
you.
to.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
2013-14 calendar that was in your package.
This is close to Spalding as was practical. Scott, you led the meeting on this. You want to walk through it?
Mrs. Mason can talk about it too, if you'd like. She was right next to me. Well, I think that we communicated that the district priority with a calendar for teacher work days and early release days was professional development, with the recommendation of Mrs. Wilson prior to the calendar committee. And I think we came up with...
I think we stuck to that.
We stuck to that, and we
Yes.
came up with some creative professional development days that are back-to-back.
I thought it was kind of silly. If you look at Christmas vacation, the kids are going to be going back to school on a Thursday. What are they going to get accomplished on Thursday and Friday? So we decided to have that not an instructional day, but put those 2 days as teacher workshop days, which I think is good to have 2 back-to-back days.
Yeah.
So there's some,
But it's not
and
Christmas
then,
vacation.
It's Christmas vacation in my house, Steve.
Well, I mean, are we trying, is there a purpose for that? You know, I don't wanna, but are we trying to, do we have to be politically correct here? Is it, I mean,
the holiday break.
It says holiday recess on the
Holiday recess.
well,
paper.
but that's what I was clarifying.
Well, they can call it holiday recess. If I want to call it Christmas, I'll call it Christmas.
Well, absolutely, but that's what my point was.
Another,
Sometimes I'm not politically correct.
another highlight of the calendar is to trying to compress those teacher workshop days into Thanksgiving week, because we know that that's not a totally productive week anyway. And we met the requirements of the 7 teacher work days in the contract and the 3 half days. These are pretty successful.
I like the schedule because there's a lot more full weeks. There's not a bunch of half days that parents have to try to make
Yeah.
arrangements for their kids with, and a full week of school is more productive than,
And the only other thing is we did some variance from Milton on half days, so that would give Mrs. Wilson the opportunity to work with different schools on half days. So
Are we able to fill in that Apple training earlier now, rather than wait till the last 2 days?
Apple training has to take place within this school year.
Right.
The Apple contract was, I believe, signed in July 23rd, something like that, of last year, so our training has to be completed by that date.
in the first year.
So,
But didn't we talk about the last 2 days of the school year, to put it in those last 2 days where the children are gone?
And we have other things that we have to do during those
So
days
now
as
that this
well.
has been changed, can we fill it in here?
No, it would be too late.
it's too late,
It's too late to get in there?
yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to do it sometime in the summer?
Before July 23rd.
That's what our
preference was.
That summer's booking up with a lot of professional development. We're looking at a number of different things, depending on what math program we land on. Make sure our teachers come in prepared for that, looking at responsive classroom for our K through 6 teachers to all be on the same page on the discipline and behavior and classroom management. And so we're kind of moving that direction to kind of align with PBIS. We're looking at the Apple. We're looking at a lot of professional development for the summer.
Is that going to be optional, or is that going to be required?
Some of it's good. The way I present it is, it can be optional, but if you choose not to attend, you're still accountable for the information.
I still have a problem with that January holiday.
January holiday.
Yep,
Which one?
the only one in January.
January 1st?
The 20th?
Yes.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I think there's more appropriate days that they should have as a holiday than the January holiday. I think that is a total disgrace.
Are we required to have that?
No.
Why not?
New Hampshire was the last state in the Union to put forth that day. You know, how about President's Day? I think President's Day would be much more appropriate.
Is that an option?
The reason we didn't take President's Day was because school vacation's the week
Next
after,
week.
so we weren't gonna take a day off one week and then take a whole week off the next. I believe was the reasoning behind that last year when it was set.
Okay, then if I might, I think I spoke to Mr. Gregoire. We had this conversation before, and Mr. Gregoire proposed Pearl Harbor Day.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
How about Pearl Harbor Day?
Personally, I think the kids should go to school Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Civil Rights Day, and I think that day should be spent on learning about those particular subjects, but
That would be fine, but if in fact we're going to take the day off, I think there are more appropriate days that could be taken off than Civil Rights Day. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel.
yeah. I'm just wondering if it's,
I mean, do we have that option of not taking that day? Is that something that's just decided among our school district? Or is that
We
something
do.
I'm
we need
looking to
do?
see if it's one of the holidays that we offer.
It is.
I believe it is. So you have
As
to
a
take
point of
that
greater
into
consideration
consideration.
And the point of greater consideration for the calendar committee and what factored into our deliberations about whatever days we worked or didn't work was families and people that are working having prescribed federal holidays off. And why we said, well, you're going to have President's Week or the week after. If we can trade that for President's Day, the holiday in January is a fairly adhered to federal holiday, more than Veterans Day. And we had to consider our families and whether they were traveling or going away or not working. And so we tried to make considerations that way.
Well, also aligning with the Spalding calendar to the extent that's practical.
Here, one of the issues here is that not even aligning to the Spalding calendar is that because of the Tri-City agreement with the CTE centers, you're really, if you want the best outcome for your kids who are attending the CTE centers, which you do, they're a valuable part of what we do, is that those calendars align. And those calendars align long before we do ours. And so when we want our Wakefield kids who attend Spalding to follow a Spalding calendar, which follows the Dover CTE Center and the Somersworth CTE Center calendar, we have to align things to a certain extent. And we did have some variability in there. But we're sort of, I'm not going to say we're controlled, because I don't want the board to think that we're controlled by other districts, but we have to consider those calendars when we make decisions so we can give our kids the best bang for our buck.
Makes sense.
Is there a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So that's 4-0.
Four.
Mhm.
Okay, teacher's room.
Oh, teacher's room. After some discussion with Bob and Viv and Steve, trying to figure out, it sounds like there was some miscommunication around changes around the teacher's room. I'm not quite sure how that came about, but my plan is to go forward the way it has originally been designed.
Well, then that's not what they're doing next week.
Well, that's what my discussion between you and Steve, and again, trying to figure out where the changes came from, Viv. Not sure where the changes came from.
Well, I guess my concern is that when I presented it to the board, I presented it with a plan in place that had already been discussed with Joe Williams and with Bob Adams. We went through everything, what could be done immediately, what would be a longer term, maybe something, a summer project, or next year. And we went so far as to even get some ideas as prices. Bob Adams gave me a price of $1,500 that he felt was reasonable for what we were going to do, and asked that I contact Restore in different places to get the donations. I've been doing that with the dimensions, and only 2 weeks ago did I find out that everything was changed without, I mean, I have all this in place, and that's what I received approval from the board.
Yeah.
So my concern is that if it was approved based on this and it was changed, then that is no longer approved, nor is the $1,500, and I think I should withdraw that motion.
I don't think.
So are we back to the original
As
plan,
I
or are we
just-
back to a changed
After talking with
plan?
Steve, was it yesterday? It was Steve yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Determined that I have no idea how the change came about. Was not able to speak with Bob today, but we'll be going back with the original plan. I mean, again, I don't want to take.
this is the
I certainly
original
don't want to. I think the plan that was originally planned was appropriate.
Right.
And
And approved.
all I can say is, again, I don't know how the plan got changed, but I'm happy to go with the plan we have. And I certainly would not want to see the teacher's room plan get scrapped because of a difference of opinion or confusion in the way the plan was being implemented. And I'm more than happy to go forward with the plan the way it was originally designed.
But, you know, the way I remember it, Judy, me and you came in for, I believe, a facilities meeting, and Viv was in. And the three of us went in, Viv went over what was gonna be done. I believe at the next facilities meeting, Bob was here. And it was at that point, Bob said, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this, that, and this.
There's your change.
So that's why I asked last week for what's going on, because the money's already been appropriated, and now things are being changed. That's why I question, and I would still like to see what is going on.
Here it is.
But I'd
This is
also,
what I turned into the office, and, you know, if you could just please bear with me and let me explain what this was. This is what I presented in order to get that $1,500 approved. This was done with Joe Williams and Bob Adams. This is the doorway coming in, this is where the current mailroom is. And you can certainly take this, I made 5 copies. This is the shower that's there currently, and there's the back-to-back showers, right?
Thank you, Liz.
Say, this one, the wall goes all the way to the ceiling.
wait a minute, isn't there only one shower?
No, there isn't, there's
Well,
two.
there's one shower in there.
This-
And there's another shower on the opposite, what was
Side
the
of
old
the
locker
wall.
room, which is now where Bob and Joe keep their materials.
Okay, but no. This one here,
The
when you,
one that's filled with paper.
okay, this one here is what the one's filled with paper. This wall goes all the way to the ceiling. That would stay there. This shower head, there's plumbing right here and there's plumbing right here. The discussion with Bob and Joe, before we even brought this forward, was that the plumbing would be capped off here and capped off there. It would not be,
Point of order. We've already had this discussion and the board has approved this plan.
it got changed, because it was changed by Bob Adams. And now the stuff that they ordered does not conform to this plan. They already have in place the plumbing that's going to take place next week. And everything was changed without board approval.
But Viv, didn't Jerry just say that he was supporting the original plan that was
He is.
approved by the board? So
Then you'll
do
need
we-
to stop what's happening next week
Yeah,
then.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay,
I can't disagree with this plan. This is the
Okay.
plan that we talked about and approved.
right.
And I think we all agree on that. And
Yeah.
again, I don't know how this came about, that a decision was made to change this.
Exactly.
But I will address
Because I
that.
had all this material,
No, I-
getting donations, and
Yep.
then all of a sudden everything was changed, and I have no place to put it.
While we're on
Yeah.
the subject, I just want to respectfully give a note of caution that the description that Steve gave suggested that 3 board members were looking at the space, discussing possibilities that were later board business. in terms of the plan, and it's something we need to be careful about, having a quorum of the board discussing what's going to become board business.
Well, it
Just-
was a posted,
Facility.
Yes, it was.
But a posted facilities meeting is not a posted board meeting. A quorum of the facilities committee is not a quorum of the board. So it's just a note of caution to be.
I'm just
to
not
be
sure if that had
very
already been
sensitive to that.
approved, and then you had the question, and you were in there, and I just showed you what it meant, or not, so it, you know.
And then it changed after that, and that's when I had a
Right, and which,
problem with it,
Right.
because we had already appropriated the money.
right,
And now I'm hearing about changes. I'm like, wait a minute,
mhm,
I'd like to know what's going on,
mhm,
who's spending the 50, I would like to know everything that's
Right.
going on about this.
absolutely.
I think where the confusion came in was talking about this wall here,
Where
which
the
is
mail
into
is.
the mail room, because there was a question of a wall was coming down and
Right.
a wall wasn't coming down. And the one going into the mail room is not coming down
No.
until summer.
And that's what it was, where the two refrigerators are and where the current mailroom is, that's a temporary wall. And what Bob Adams had discussed with Joe was that that wall could come down and make that an open area for the teachers. But that's not something that's gonna be done until the summertime.
Well, let me ask you, so this is they're not gonna cap off both showers, are they?
It's the same wall, it's just one unit that they would cap off.
They're not gonna cap off both showers, are they?
There's two separate shower
Yeah.
rooms.
What, they're not gonna,
No,
but it's in one wall, are they going to
No,
cap
there's a
off?
separate shower in the
in the other room.
locker room where Joe's stuff is now.
To answer your
There's a
question, yes.
working shower.
Yes,
Well, I'm looking at this and I'm showing, there's two showers on an adjacent wall.
yes.
So are both these showers being planned to be capped?
Capped.
That's what it
Yes.
says.
Yes.
Well, see, I think we should probably have one working shower.
We
We
do.
do.
We opened up the other side. We had 3 showers. In where Joe's current shop is.
So the other shower
That's
that
why we approved
is
it.
not on here.
No,
Correct.
no, it's on the other side
It's in a
of
separate
the,
room.
of the stage.
Separate room.
And that's the one we approved that door to be put in, and it's now open and functional.
Well, since we are still agreed that our original okay for the expenditure and our original design is the one still in place and the one you're going forward with, do we need any further discussion on it?
No, I don't think we do.
What's that? Okay.
Good.
Policies first reading. We've got 2 sets, and Scott handed one out.
I have 2 sets of first readings, and actually, Liz, I have a whole packet of policies for you.
Oops, sorry.
So which ones are we doing first? I have-
Do you have an extra one?
There's your packet, you can have, Liz.
Thank you.
You don't need it now.
No, but I can use the
Oh,
back.
that's the one I sent out.
Updated policy book.
Scott gave us the quorum policy tonight, too.
Yes.
Everybody should have that.
I don't know what I did with
Here's another.
it. Liz has got it.
Mr. McIntyre, you don't have that.
Oh,
Okay.
I've got mine.
Do you want to?
No, I got it. I got it.
RGJR1.
It's just a change of that word on quorum policy.
Oh, yeah, you want to point that out, Liz?
Next to the bottom sentence, a quorum shall skip only, be met only when a quorum of the board is physically present.
Did you get that? Scott?
No, what was that change?
The next to the last line, a quorum shall
Need a comma.
be met only when a quorum of the board is physically present.
Got it.
Take that one out and put it between that and the line.
I'm not sure that this works. The new sentence, a majority vote in the affirmative or negative is required. I don't think you need a majority vote in the negative. I mean, you need a majority vote to pass an action, because this does not address a tie. And a tie is not a majority vote in the negative. A tie is a tie, and a tie is a no vote. I think you need a majority vote in the affirmative to pass an action. Failing to have a majority, which could be a tie, is a negative vote, not requiring a majority of members present.
Do you want to take out negative?
I would just say a majority vote in the
Liz, you
affirmative
will-
of present members is required
No,
to
that's the
pass.
policy committee thing.
Liz, you added that wording in,
Yeah.
so do you want to?
Well, I thought a majority vote up or down would constitute the passage of it.
But tonight we have 4 members here. If we split 2 to 2 on a vote, you wouldn't have a majority either positive or negative, but the result of the vote would be a no.
No vote.
Right, so
Fail.
you can't say that a majority vote in the negative is required, because a tie is all that's required for a negative outcome.
Okay.
So it
So
says a
we move-
majority vote in the affirmative
Of the
of
members.
the members
present.
present is
So just
required.
remove-
Or you
Or
could say in the affirmative is required of the members present, either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just remove all negative.
So we're just gonna remove all negative?
Yeah.
All right, so those are the only changes.
Were there any concerns on any of the other policies?
Well, everyone has time to read it before the second reading.
Everyone had time to read it before the first reading,
Yeah, could we
all the
just
other ones.
please look at EDCA? And I think we addressed this before. This is the second page, page 2 of 2. And this is on the use of personal cell phones and communication devices. I think we had a discussion about that before on page 2 of that policy.
Yeah, we've been talking about that word strongly for a long time.
Right, employees are strongly
Prohibited?
prohibited. You're
Where
either
is that?
If you're prohibited, you're prohibited. There's no strongly. I think we should remove it, and I think we talked about that before.
Where is it?
First line.
Page 2,
First-
Third
next
word
page. It's
on
the
the
third
second
word,
page.
yeah. And I think we talked about that before. Employees are strongly prohibited. Just remove
Oh, we
strongly.
changed it discouraged, okay.
Right. So it should be just employees are prohibited.
Yeah.
In case of, except in case of emergency.
I thought it was carved in concrete, couldn't be taken away.
Okay. Thank you.
That was the only thing
So
that I
we'll be
had.
on the next agenda for second reading. While I'm doing the next agenda item list here, are you going to have your handbook ready, Jay?
I should. I'm almost done with it, and then I'm going to give Jerry and some other administrators a chance to have a crack at it, and then I hope to get it out to the board in the packet, so you all have a chance to read it.
Okay.
And we have the cafe services, the financials for the next agenda also, before we
Yeah.
get too far out of.
Board member replacement. I know there's been a lot of questions going back and forth about this week. And I know lawyers are, you can get 2 different opinions from 2 different lawyers. So I decided to call the Secretary of State's office. I figured no one would argue with the Secretary of State, considering he makes the election laws, or she. I don't know, is it he or she?
He.
I talked to a Dave Scanlon, and I explained the situation, that the resignation came in after the start of the filing period. His answer to me, and he said I could quote him, is if the resignation happens prior to the election, the current board replaces. So it's going to be my suggestion that we put some type of advertisement out.
Can you repeat that, please, Judy?
If the resignation happens prior to the election, the current board replaces.
That's not what the RSA says.
The resignation was from our board replaces.
That's not what the RSA says. It just says the school board.
That's right. Resignation was from this school board.
But it does, well, you know, there you go with one attorney's opinion.
Secretary of
That's the
State.
Secretary of State,
I understand that. That's not my point.
right, the RSA differs.
Apparently we have one attorney's opinion who says that, but I'm guarantee you, I could go out and get 100 attorneys who would say the opposite.
Well, that's why I
But
called the
that's why it's with the
Secretary of
Secretary of
State.
State.
Well, I understand that,
Because they're the
but-
ones that
but
write the election
I
law.
understand. But looking at the RSA itself, which is in fact the law, the RSA itself does not state that. That's my point. Because the RSA is the actual law, and the actual law does not state that.
Well, I'm looking at 66961.
I'm looking at 197.26.
Well, I'm looking at filling of vacancies, 66961. Said vacancy shall be filled by the action of that body or person authorized by law. And it's this school board.
Well, this is school too. School meetings and offices, vacancies. This is the RSA that the policy refers to, that our policy refers to. This is the RSA that I was just given by the superintendent yesterday, because I wanted to read the RSA. So, and what RSA did you have?
66961.
669, I'm sorry, 669 what?
61.
61?
That's town elections.
Town elections?
Mhm.
This is school meetings and offices, district offices, vacancies.
Yeah, it's right here.
The school board shall fill vacancies
Yeah, it
occurring
doesn't
on the
say.
board. We are the school board.
It's so,
That's right.
so it would be.
We are the school board until the next election.
So it would be if the resignation occurred during this school board, then
But
during this tenure.
the question I'm going to have is, where is it that specifically states this board versus the newly elected board?
It says the school board.
Well, the newly elected school board will be the school board.
Will be,
The
but then will be.
resignation happened on our watch.
It will be, but it isn't currently.
Where does that clearly state that in that RSA, Judy? That's my point. It doesn't state it,
It
that
says
doesn't.
the school
does.
board, and we're the school board.
Yes, it does.
Madam Chair, would you
Well,
like a motion?
Yes.
I move that this school board appoint a replacement for the vacancy that was created while this school board was in office.
Table the motion.
First, we need a second to mine, and then you can move to table.
I'll second Liz's.
Okay, can we take this a little more slowly? Motion that the board appoint,
A replacement for the vacancy that took place
placement for the
vacancy
vacancy that took place
Which one is this?
during our
It's
school
same
board
like-
Seven, I'm
Same
looking at.
one.
during
All right, well,
this school board's
You see, I'm
tenancy.
understanding it the same way. By saying the school board, we are the only school board present. And if we're addressing that,
no, but here, what do we have here? We have motion and second,
Yes.
Motion and second.
discussion. Therein lies the problem. There's one meeting left of this school board. You have 3 members who will not be present after one more meeting.
right?
Why should, it just doesn't make any sense to me, why, if you're gonna have 3 members of this board who will no longer be on the board after one more meeting, and this person who is now being it's now being stated that that person will serve out the term till next March of 2014, it would be far more appropriate to be appointed by the newly elected board who's going to have to work with this person for the next year. By the time that this board gets to appoint someone, they're never even gonna have to work with this person.
I think that,
But that doesn't matter, because
No.
when you have an election,
Yeah?
you don't
get to pick who you're gonna sit with.
The town does.
The townspeople elect them.
We're not, therein lies the problem, Judy. We're not talking about an election. We're talking about an appointment, which is 2 totally separate things.
I guess if I could, just my personal opinion, I don't think it really should matter. If someone is willing to put in the time to invest in serving on this board and working with the school to try to make it better, then regardless of who it is, if you're willing to do it, then we make it work. And we work together as a team, regardless of who it is. So I don't see the difference whether it's now or by the new board. Whether it's this board or the next board, whoever we appoint, we're going to work with. What's the difference? If we choose them, or if the new board chooses them, what's the difference? We're going to work with them. We're not all going to agree.
Viv, you can't be serious with that statement.
I'm serious, because we're not always going to agree, but at least we work together.
You can't be serious. You can't be, that statement, you can't be serious.
I am serious. I will work with whoever is on the board, whether we appoint them, the next board appoints them. If they're willing to invest the time, let's work together and do what's best for the school and the school district. And it really doesn't matter to me who comes on the board. Thank you for investing all the time, because it's a lot of time.
I call the question, Madam Chairman.
I just appreciate anybody stepping up, so.
There's a motion on the floor.
And there's a second.
And that was for this board to replace appoint the next board member.
Table the motion.
In order to do that, we would have to do an advertisement and so forth, but we can figure that out.
Well,
and what
you can. It's not necessary, that's your choice.
It's
You know,
not
the
right,
process,
but
yeah.
it's the fairest way to do it.
A motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Table the motion.
We've got to take a vote on this motion before it is a motion. We have to take a vote on the motion in place, and then when we're through making that motion, you can move to table it.
I thought you could table it before.
No, I don't think so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I think that we need to have some type of process to get this out to the public through... Oh, Jerry's not here tonight. Maybe we can see if we can get it on the PEG channel.
Motion to table.
Is there a second? Seeing no second. We can get this on our websites and on our PEG channel. And can we get maybe an ad in the Carroll County? Just vacancy, school board member, the amount of term, you know, what the term remaining would be.
Maybe 1 year.
And we need to have these back by, letter of interest by March 6th?
Well, no, we'd have to have them come March 6th.
Yeah, they'd have to submit their letter of interest by March 6th to the Wakefield School Board and be willing to come that night for an interview. That's what they did when...
I would put the deadline sooner, no?
Wouldn't you want the deadline to be for the board packet the Thursday before?
Right.
That's not enough time, because this isn't even going to get into the newspaper till next week.
There's no
It's
real
2
harm in
weeks.
having it come in on the same day. If if somebody shows up, if you're one person or four people, there's no real.
Yeah,
harm
just
in
let
having
them know that
that.
they need to be available for March 6th at 6 o'clock for interviews, whoever applies.
Just for information, you have had one letter of interest.
Mhm.
Steve?
Did anybody receive any information,
Regarding what?
this particular subject?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yes.
Did you, Judy?
On board member replacement?
Uh-huh.
Just some emails that went back and forth.
Liz, did you
No.
receive anything?
No.
Well, how come I'm looking at an email that says the whole board received information? The only thing I received that I was apparently trying to receive for a week and a half was an RSA.
Which one are you referring to, so I can,
Pardon me?
which email are you referring to, so I can make sure that's the one I'm referring to?
You're not referring to this one because it looks like I'm the only one who got this.
I sent
Okay,
an
then that's
email
not the one I'm thinking of, I got.
The beginning of, I think it was beginning of last week, right after the last board meeting, that explained the process
Right.
to everybody.
Yeah,
So hopefully you all got that.
right, yeah.
Okay, so I thought that's what he was asking.
That's what I
about.
thought he was asking too, so if there's something different, that's why I said, what is it, 'cause I don't know.
Can I read this?
Absolutely. So,
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. I don't know what it
Well,
is.
I'm asking.
I don't know what it
It's
is.
your email.
Sure, you can read it.
All right, well,
It's up to the chairman if it.
Yeah,
oh,
right,
oh, I mean,
right.
well, that's what,
I don't know what you've got.
it's in regards to this particular topic, then I got, and,
If Jay doesn't mind it being read, go ahead.
well, that's what I'll just read the pertinent line, I won't read
Well,
the.
no, that may take something out of context, so read the
Oh, all
whole
right,
thing.
all right, fine. I'm not clear on what is unacceptable to you. I did not create the law, but it is my responsibility to make sure each board member has accurate information so each of you has the knowledge needed to pursue whatever you think is best. I sent the information out to the full board well in advance of its first meeting when it could act, which is this week. I don't see the problem, but look forward to hearing from you tomorrow or sometime Wednesday so I can go into the meeting knowing what you would like me to do differently the next time. It clearly says that information was sent out to the full board well in advance of its first meeting when it could act, which is this week, which would be tonight.
Yeah,
And
that
the
was
only
the
thing
email.
that I received on it is that RSA.
I think we had gotten an email prior to that. I think there was an email about replacement.
But then, who, what,
I don't
was,
have my computer here, so I can't look see it, but I'm pretty sure that there
was
was
was there
emails.
a legal opinion received?
Oh, I think you may have talked to Barbara
Jay.
Lohman, but,
There were two legal opinions. I talked to Barbara immediately before the deliberative session.
yes.
Because we always talk about, are there any legal questions that we
Yeah,
think
that's
might
right.
come up at the meeting
Right.
to be prepared for? So I said, I didn't know if this would come up because it didn't really directly relate to the deliberative session, but I wanted to have the answer in case it was raised. So she discussed it with the attorney that attended.
Correct.
And they both agreed on what would happen. I spoke to you about it and said, I don't know if this will come up, but I do have information about it if it comes up. It didn't come up at the deliberative session. So after the deliberative session, when you couldn't have acted on it anyway, but if it came up, I didn't want you to be embarrassed by not having the answer. Once it didn't come up there, I sent it out to the full board.
In an email.
The information in an email. So that's the process that I took.
I would like to believe that the same civic-minded citizens would send letters of intent, whether it's to this board or the next board or any other board.
I don't see why it matters.
Well, I think it does clearly matter because it's the next board who's gonna be working with this individual. I mean, look at, oh my God.
I don't
Yeah,
see how it matters.
it
Okay,
does
well, we've
matter,
taken,
okay?
there's been a motion, a second, we've taken a vote, we've decided on the process, we're gonna advertise it, and we're gonna move on from there. The next item is release of sealed minutes.
Point of order. I just have a question. RSA 19726 on vacancies, it says the school board shall fill vacancies occurring on the school board until the next annual meeting of the district.
So this is how I was taking it. You guys could fill a position until the next annual meeting, which would be the election. And then
That's
the new
correct.
board, could, well, this, according to this RSA, I'm just saying.
That would be if the resignation had taken place previous in the year. Under 669-61, number 3, for the purpose of paragraph 1 and with respect to those offices elected by official, nonpartisan ballot, the term next annual town election shall mean the next annual town election for which the nomination filing period as set forth in RSA 669-19 begins subsequent to the occurrence of the vacancy. Any vacancy which occurs between the beginning of the filing period and the town election shall not be filled by official ballot until the annual town election the following year.
And what was that RSA?
669-61.
Is that the New Hampshire education laws at your fingertips? Is that where it came from?
No, it's under
election.
It's election law.
Because this is under the school board, the national education laws, and these are all the RSAs, and I don't know if that one's in it.
It's because of the fact that the resignation came after the filing period began. If the resignation had been in November, this board would have filled that seat with an appointment until this election.
Right.
But the filing period had already opened, so it's not possible for someone to be elected to that position.
But you wouldn't be elected anyway, because it's an appointment no matter what to fill a seat, so it wouldn't be an election.
No, if the resignation had come in before the filing period, then it could have been put on the ballot as an open seat for a year.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would have been put on the
I didn't
ballot.
think you could do that. I think you had to just finish up.
Yeah,
You would appoint someone to finish till March.
Yeah.
And then it would be on the ballot.
Okay.
But we don't have the opportunity to put it on the ballot, so we need to appoint.
I get that.
I have an email that states that Mr. McIntyre got this legal opinion before the deliberative session, not at the deliberative session.
Yes.
Yeah, he said before.
No, I thought he said at the deliberative session.
No, he said before. He said before
Well,
to be
that's my-
prepared for. Steve, I told you that night. After deliberative session, I told you that Jay had looked into it, and this is the
Well,
answer.
that's what I
he's
asked
given me.
a few minutes ago. Who authorized for the superintendent to go out and contact the school board attorney and expend taxpayers' money?
I did.
Nobody did.
He has the right to. That's his job. He has the right to contact the attorney anytime.
Our attorney?
Absolutely. He's our superintendent. Yeah, anytime he feels the need, that is his right.
It's a legal opinion.
Any legal
Well,
opinion.
I
I'm
think
sure he
that's
does.
why we've discussed that probably the superintendent, we have discussed that the superintendent should probably have his own attorney, and the board has their own attorney.
Well, we've had that discussion.
Yeah, I know. But
We had that discussion at an SAU meeting, and no one agreed with me, so it's a now, because we have an issue, now we're going to agree with me, so.
I agreed with you then.
All right, so let's move on to release of sealed minutes. We had a meeting, I can't remember the date, to be quite honest with you at this point. I can look it up if anybody cares, the particular date. But it was a posted meeting to, to review sealed minutes. And just so the public knows the process, there were 3 of us there, Viv, Liz, and I, and we went through all non-public minutes back to 2002. And we each had a checklist sheet. I don't even know, I might have mine here. The meeting was February 7th, because I have the public notice. And I gave everybody a piece of paper. We all went through and read the minutes. And then what we did was, like, we put the date and whether we thought individually they needed to be sealed kept sealed or unsealed them. And then after we were all done reading, we'd all done our check sheet, we did like a little vote. And all the ones that we agreed could be unsealed, we then had Scott review to make sure that we weren't missing anything for any reason that we should continue to seal them. So with that being said, that was the process, and the minutes that will be released, the minutes I'm going to ask the board to release, I'm going to give a list of dates and just ask for a vote on the group of them. October 2nd, 2002, April 4th, 2007. I'll make sure I'm not missing any here. November 13th, 2003. I said April 4th, right?
Yep.
December 8th, 2008. February 16th, 2011. May 18th, 2011. 11/8, 2012. 11/20, 2012. And March 20, 2012. 3/16/11. 6/20/12. I'm sorry, those were out of order. That's it.
I have 11.
You have
It's on
11?
the envelope, too.
That's what I have to do.
Yep.
Okay.
So somebody wants to make a motion for that?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So it's a motion to unseal.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so Viv made the motion, Liz offered the second, and it's a 4-0 vote.
I'll give those to.
I have them handy on this too. So that's another check.
So just for future reference for anybody that's going to be on the board or that's on the board now, the ones that were sealed, and I strongly suggest if you're going to seal minutes that you actually put them in an envelope, seal the envelope, and date it on the front. Because I was really upset when I got to the SAU and I was handed a notebook of sealed minutes.
Opened.
They were not. There were some tucked into the front folder that were in sealed envelopes, and those were mostly more recent ones. But whenever I ask the board to seal minutes, I put them in a sealed envelope. I seal the envelope, and on the front of it, actually I sign the minutes. And then on the front of it, I write sealed minutes, the date, and I sign it. So after the ones that were in sealed envelopes we did open, I put them back in a sealed envelope again and sealed it, and I wrote on the front of the envelope, reviewed and resealed, and the date that was done, and signed my signature. So if you want minutes to truly be sealed, put them in an envelope and seal them and date them and sign them. That way you'll know that they remain sealed. And I believe we have, just a reminder that tomorrow at 3:30 we have the PEG channel interview. And on March 6th, Doug Shute called me, and Mr. Lister is going to come at 5 o'clock prior to our school board meeting to meet with us.
Has anybody, the PEG channel has been moved off now to a 501c3? So,
Oh, I don't know.
Clear.
Oh, so we should be calling it the Clearwater?
Well,
not
it's
PEG?
it's clear view, but I'm just saying, is that going to change tomorrow, and maybe should someone give someone a call just to make sure that someone is still planning on being here tomorrow. That's all I'm saying.
Oh. Well, I had an email from Jerry requesting that I send an electronic copy of the warrant articles to Jim Miller.
Okay, all right. As long as
And I had Andrew send that to Jim, and I haven't heard anything different. So
Because
I will double check in the morning.
They just did this last week at the selectmen's meeting. So
Yeah.
it's separate, splitting it off. The whole thing is just that someone's up to speed, that someone's gonna show up.
I'll check in the morning, and I'll give you all a call.
It's clear view, right?
So can you add to your discussion tomorrow, the request for potential board members?
Yeah, we could.
And you're gonna have them.
Yeah.
That's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, we could.
Thank you.
Viv, do you have a food advisory committee? Anything to tell us on
Yeah,
that?
the only thing is, we did meet last week, and it was Deb Wilson, myself, and Jerry, and Chris Farrell, Ruth Chick, and they brought in a tray of wraps for the kids to try, and they made a buffalo chicken pizza, wasn't it? Buffalo
barbecue chicken
pizza.
The popcorn.
The only complaint about the pizza was some of them said it's too saucy, others wanted more, they wanted it spicier. So it was half and half. The wraps were a big hit. They had spinach and tomato and whole wheat, and they did a popcorn chicken with the honey mustard and lettuce, and we didn't get to try it. So, but the kids did like it. They seemed to like it. They ate them all, and they didn't. The only complaint was a couple of them with the pizza. They didn't care for the sauce, but the sandwiches were a big hit. And then we were told then that the 5th and 6th grade would now be able to get the deli sandwiches Monday after vacation. I think they're starting that. So, and that was it for that meeting last week. But the kids enjoyed it. I'm sorry. There was only one other thing. They're doing 2 contests, and I think that parents should know too. The children have been asked to create a pizza. So those that are on the student council, they're coming up with their own special recipes. And anyone who has the winning recipe wins a pizza for their table. And the other thing that Chris asked them was to come up with some ideas for the yogurt parfaits. Some of them wanted mandarin oranges and different things. So they're asking the kids for their input, and they're going to be participating in creating some new dishes to offer. So, and they were pretty excited about that. So it was a very good meeting.
Thank you. Comments by the public. Waddy, I know you've been...
I'm
Sorry.
I totally... I have 2 questions. My first is, I was about the resident forms for the high school students. I'm not 100% sure that high school parents realize that it's tuition based on why you're asking for them. It comes home the first week of school, but I don't know if all the parents realize that that's how you base your tuition bills. And sometimes with high school students, as well as younger students who have backpacks, if they would send it directly to the parents instead of sending it home through the children the first few days of school, they might have a better turnout.
I think we did that this year, didn't we, Jim?
Didn't we mail them out?
We were supposed to.
I don't know if the first one was handed out, but we have mailed out 2.
Yeah.
And is there a reference to tuition in it?
I'll have to go back and look at it.
Because some parents may not understand, like especially if you're moving into the district, you don't, it used to be that Harriet Wilson would call you and say, could you please come down and fill this out for us? And then she would explain to us why we had to do it because we didn't know. So it could be just that.
Well, I think we addressed it, and that's why we did mail out one set.
Yeah, well, we mailed out 2, but I'd have to go back and look at it and see whether or not it's clear what it's for.
But if you add the sentence that your taxes are directly affected by whether or not you fill out this form.
Well,
then they may not fill it out.
If they fill it out, the taxes go up because you're paying for it.
I'm just saying, if you say that it's a Spalding requirement, that your student, this is a Spalding requirement for our district, then maybe they would understand.
No, it's not a Spalding requirement.
It's a Wakefield requirement, or to pay your Spalding bill.
I'll take a look at it.
I'll take a look at it. I just didn't know.
But the
And
phone
then-
call might be, I mean, because we did, Harriet would make the calls.
She would, because
So
a lot of
maybe
parents
that's the
didn't
other option.
understand, and
Well, that's why I said maybe the social
Social worker can
Mhm.
do that, make the calls like, you know, like we do with attendance, but making the calls and asking for that. Possibility, that's up to Jerry. Jay.
or even an alert now. You have that capability too, for high school students
That's
too.
true.
You have paperwork you need to fill out, could you please contact the office?
I
And
don't think the high school students are on our alert now.
We do get your
They
alert now
are.
because we're on the bus
Yeah.
routes. So we
Oh,
do get
okay.
them,
Okay.
Yep.
or we get a portion of them.
Because I know they get notices from Spalding, the high school kids.
We get
They
both.
have the alert, okay.
We get both. Wakefield usually calls first though, even though you have to be at Spalding buses, it seems earlier. And another question I had, Madam Chair, is that I did put a letter of intent in to fill the
Yes.
empty seat. And I guess I was curious to know why I wasn't considered for the position.
Because we didn't decide how we were going to replace that position until tonight.
Okay.
So, and the intent is to send out, to make it available to anybody. That's what they did the last two ones. They put out a request for letter of interests.
Well, I was standing when we registered to vote, and there weren't a lot of other people, and I'm wondering, do you believe that it's the shorter term that they would be interested in
I'm wondering if there might be
serving,
more
or that
people
they-
interested in the 1 year
Yeah,
Okay.
versus three.
versus the 3.
Okay.
So, and if you had, it wasn't really clear, if you had filled in, you would have been filling in for all next year. So you
Well-
would have had to make a choice between taking the 1 year or,
And that's why I'm speaking
or the
with
3
you,
year.
because when you fill in, I wasn't.
You
in
were
the
thinking of
RSA
just filling in till the
in
next.
the RSA that I was
Yeah.
given when I called the School Board Association was that it would be filled, the position would be filled until the next election. So
Right.
I thought you needed someone for just a couple meetings
Right.
to fill in, and that I would be happy to do that until the next election, not knowing that because we had already gone in and registered to vote,
Right.
that it would be
It
not
throws a
only this
monkey
two,
wrench
but
in it.
also the remainder of Ms.
Right.
Colbath's
Right.
position. So that's why I had said in my letter of intent that I was willing to fill in, but if elected, I would like to take the full 3-year position, because I think that consistency is good for the board.
Right, and that would have made sense if you could have just filled in till March, because then you would have been elected.
And that's what
And
my
that would have worked,
misunderstanding
but-
on the law was, is that when
Yeah.
I called, it said that till the next election, not
Yeah, it's the definition
the
of
next
next election.
Right.
election.
Yeah,
Okay, I thank you.
okay. Do you want to keep your letter in, or, I mean, it's,
It's gonna be.
I would
either
like to
or.
serve a 3-year term, and I'm running unopposed right now.
so that
So
it really
I
doesn't.
believe that if there are other people that would like to step forward and fill the
1 year.
year in one meeting,
Okay.
that would be fine.
Oh, Deb is not, before we go into non-public, Deb is not going to be available for the
From
March 20th meeting?
From the, I will not be available for the March 20th meeting or the April 4th meeting. In fact, I will be out of the state from March 19th through March 5th.
April 5th.
April 5th.
So we need to find someone to do minutes for your first 2 meetings, because Deb will not be available. And whoever is elected and appointed will need to be sworn in prior to her leaving, or you won't be able to serve till she gets back. So,
I think the town, in the absence of the
The
schools.
moderator can swear them in
Then-
my
okay.
absence.
But we
Um,
usually, we
but-
did it like a day or two later.
right.
There-
But that still
there's
gives you a week.
there's
Yeah.
almost a week. And Judy, you were checking about the unopposed thing, whether I had to wait the 72 hours.
Oh, I couldn't, did I find that?
I think we waited, we were both on the.
We had to wait 72 hours.
You had write-in
They had
candidates,
write-in
though.
candidates, that's
Oh.
why you had to wait.
Okay.
Just wait, I'd be safe to wait the 72,
Yeah.
and then you know you don't have a problem.
As a
There
general,
may be write-ins, who knows?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
never know.
It's only 72 hours.
Bonnie, just so that you know, what I generally do, I would, after the election, I will contact whoever wins, explain that I have to wait 72 hours before I can swear anybody in, and then try to arrange a common time when everyone who was elected can meet me at Town Hall.
I think I've worked with you before on that.
Usually that Monday morning, but we could do it Saturday,
If
or Sunday, I can get
It
a
may
key.
have to be where he leaves very early in the morning to go to work. If he gets elected as well, it may have to be,
Well, we may have to make multiple arrangements, but there is a short window there when it can be done.
okay.
Any other comments by the public? Seeing none? Like a motion to go into non-public session under 91A3 to A, C, E, and G.
Motion, Brown eye.
Receipt I?
Mason, aye.
Second.
Oh, I didn't second.
Oh, second. Okay.
Okay, second.
All right, so
Motion. Motion
Steve
to
is
go
making the
non-public.
motion.
Second.
I made the motion to start with, but...
Oh, I'm sorry. Judy made the motion.
Steve?
Viv made the second. Brown eye.
Receipt I?
There we go. Mason, aye.
Jerry?
John could not make it tonight, Judy.